Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another round of the NXTCC, or known in full as the Next Gen Racing Touring Car Championship Season 3, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing, sponsored by Douglas Motorsport. And today marks round 3 of 10 as the story continues in the quest to answer the question, who is the master or mistress of the front-wheel drive touring car class machine in our Pro and Pro-Am classes? We're here today in Canada at the infamous Canadian Tire Motorsports Park circuit. We look to continue finding the answer to that question at a circuit that's very different to the first two circuits we've seen on our calendar so far. Well, of course, this circuit being perhaps the premier circuit of Canada in the fact that it has brought to its track surface over the course of its 50-plus year history a whole variety of series on the North American continent. It is characterised by 10 corners that are fast-flowing and rather contradictory in nature. The first half of a lap is all about elevation change and also making sure to carry all the speed through the undulations from start to finish of each and every corner, whereas the second half of the lap is relatively flat and it's all about a high-speed charge down the back straight into a serpentine in S that completes the lap. But as our drivers get set to go racing today, you're tuning live via 2 or 3 media platforms for your viewing pleasure, and of course we do have the 2 official Next Gen Racing media platforms, including the YouTube channel, and that's at youtube.com, search for Next Gen Racing. Alternatively on Facebook, you can go to facebook.com/groups/Next Gen Racing, and lastly, as an alternative, we do have Twitch available. That's twitch.tv/TX141. And who is TX141? Allow me to introduce that person. It is I, your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And welcome to all of you, regardless of which media platform you're tuning in by. We can see all 3 chats, and we do say hello and hope you're all doing well. But as for our schedule for today in Canada, our times are British Summer Time, that's BST, or alternatively Universal Coordinated Time at +1 at UTC +1. And we can see that in just under 18 minutes time we'll be heading into our opening qualifying session. 15 minutes in nature, and it's going to be a fast and hard charge around this circuit, with the lap times being relatively short, coming in at just under 1.5 minutes, and it does seem motor drivers will have plenty of opportunities to start and get a good lap in qualifying. After that, we'll make our way to the grid for our first race of the day, of what there being 3 sprint races on the schedule. And our first race, 14 laps, indeed all 3 races, 14 laps as well. And that'll be at 9:15 this evening. We'll take a brief breather and return at approximately what will be 9:25 for the build-up to race number 2. And then we'll take another breather before return at approximately 10:05. And that'll be for race 3 of 3 today. We have a lovely, pleasant sky out here, and indeed quite the nice ambient temperature, currently at 21 degrees centigrade, until it's absolutely scorching on that track surface. 42 degrees centigrade currently. It is a warm one out there on the asphalt, and our drivers might be feeling that already. But I can tell you one thing they'll also be feeling, and that is the rough and tumble that came with last week, as we take a look at our calendar thus far and what still awaits us. Because last week on the 25th of April, we were in Italy at the Imola Grand Prix circuit, and where we saw a good number of instances as well as some absolutely spectacular battling, and our drivers have been told to bring it in to a degree or rein it in with regards to the instance that we did see, but it didn't detract from the ultimate thing, which was classic touring car racing, which we all come and love to expect from the NXTCC. And of course, preceded by that was round number 1 back on the 18th of April, where we kick things off at Silverstone International. But looking to today and onwards, of course, today is the 2nd of May for round number 3. And after today, we're making our way from Canada to the United States of America for the first time this season for the state of California, and particularly downtown Long Beach circuit. And that is of course, in the city of Long Beach. It'll be our street circuit on the calendar on the 9th of May. And I can tell you one thing, when you think street circuits, you probably think of Monaco from Formula 1. Well, don't worry, we have got plenty of overtaking opportunities at Long Beach, and it's a very different spectacle, and you're going to have an absolute treat in store for round number 4. Then round number 5, we make our way back to the European continent, and that'll be for the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit, and that'll be in Germany on the 16th of May, and we'll have the short version of the Grand Prix circuit, and whilst it may be short, it'll have its technical flavour to it, and therefore our drivers will all be primed and ready to try and give it their utmost to wrap up the first half of the season. For after that, we'll take a week's break before returning for round number 6 on the 30th of May, and that'll be back in the United Kingdom at the classic Alton Park Island circuit. How could we not go and visit Alton Park? It was synonymous with touring car, much like Brands Hatch, but Alton Park has made it onto the calendar for this season. And then round number 7, we're making our way back to the US of A for the Texas State Circuit of the Circuit of the Americas on the 6th of June, albeit a shorter version of it, not the full Grand Prix layout, but still plenty in store there. Well, then in round number 8, we make our way all the way down under to Australia for the newly introduced Sandown Circuit for our calendar, and well, they're the home of horsepower for V8, so we'll be playing home to the home of horsepower for our touring cars. And well, how will they get on? In the fact it's 2 drag strips connected by a series of very limited corners. It is going to be very close. It's going to be nip and tuck on the 13th of June. But in the penultimate round, we make our way back to the United States of America, and particularly to the state of California once again for the Sonoma Raceway Circuit right on the northern tip of California on the 20th of June, and then we bring it all to a close back on the European continent with our last visit to Germany, and the Hockenheimring in Baden-Württemberg will play host on the 27th of June as we bring the curtain down and see how it all concludes. So we've still got plenty of racing to go, but as our drivers begin to make their way into what is the second third of the season after tonight, well, let's remind you of those championship standings after 2 rounds. And we start off with the overall Drivers' Championship, of course, and we can see here Jamie Dorey, after a brilliant string of results with a win, a podium and a top 5 overall, he now leads in the overall classification now on 97 points with a growing advantage of what is 35 points to Mikey Doble. Both drivers have surged away up through the field after 2 rounds, but Mikey Doble really defining the championship standard of resilience after a rather dismal round number 1 and completely turning it around at Imola. However, he'll need to keep his eyes open for Adam Delmont, who in P3 will be looking to close back up into the hunt for the top 2, only 2 points further behind and looking to leapfrog his way into P2 as a minimum tonight, with Joseph Doble also only a further 3 points off, and the same for Francisco Melo there, 3 points to Joseph Doble, and then John Higgins Jr. only outside the top 5 by a single point. You can see how the success ballast at Imola has definitely had an impact in the overall standings from the outset, in the fact that whilst Jamie Dorey may be quite significantly clear at this time, it's very likely he may be reeled back in at very short notice. With Andrew Pike and P7 on 51 points, the Sim Racing Collective drive, much like his teammate John Higgins Jr., both trying to make progress, but Higgins Jr. really struggling at Imola and looking to try and come back stronger today. And then Wayne Douglas on 47 points, only ahead of Marcelo Reles based on result countback, with Martin Shirley on 44 points completing the top 10 for RD Simsport. Best of the rest in P11, Andrea Romy on 44 points, and he'll be looking to steer clear of Chris Daines, who on 37 points will be looking to try and come on strong, albeit we have actually been informed just going into tonight and quite recently that Chris Daines will no longer be on the grid for the remainder of this season, and that is due to personal circumstances, so we do wish him well. Unfortunately, it's not going to work out in terms of being able to attend the rounds from here on. And then we do have Marco Benatelli in at P13 on 36 points, 1 clear of Sam Smith, with Alan McCain at P15 there, and right now Alan McCain looking very promising in the Prime class, and we'll come to that very shortly. Michael Lees in P16 ahead of Rafael Labarto, with Gavin Garner, Luke Jones and Reece Watt completing the top 20, and interesting to see the 2 JW Motorsport drivers creeping into the top 20 and trying to stay there, with the fact outside the top 20 by what is a margin of 2 points. Nick Clemens there in P21, albeit we're missing the fact he does have 12 points, but let us assure you that he does have 12 points there, ahead of Lee Horn by a single point. Then Dale Mulqueen and Ivan Bolkamp both on 10 points, but Mulqueen ahead of Bolkamp based on result countback, with Linus Broelstrom, Robert Dasuni, Matthew Addy, James Vasquez-Gale, Massimo Boni and Dario Raffaetta completing your top 30. Then we come to our 31st onwards drivers, and these drivers have all yet to score points in the overall classification. That includes Alex Meredith, Benjamin McCluskey, Daniel Fritz, Isaac Doble, Jackie Chalmers, Jake Pitt, Jesmond Tan, Jonathan Collins, Josh Brown, Mark Arrowsmith, and then looking outside the top 40 again at place based on result countback now. Mark Arrowsmith still there with Mark Sykes, Matthew Cheverton, Melvin Eckerson, Paolo Maniti, Paul Scott, Phil McDougall, Philip Bruberg, Sebastian Bruberg, Tom Bingham, Bernardo Colby there on -1 point, due 2 points being deducted due to penalties being applied post-race. Costa Chats Consonanto on -5 points, the same as Marcello Felix and Andrea Talasco, and yet to turn up on the grid, but in fact, no, they are listed, and they have turned up on the grid once or twice. Daniel Feder, Dylan Flanagan, and Chris Byron there, P55 through to P57. As we then come on to our Pro Championship standings, focusing here, and of course the points being adjusted for the Pro classification. Jamie Dorey leading the way at 103 points, and the advantage standing at 27 points over Marco Benatelli. And will Benatelli really putting on a strong performance at Imola, much like Dorey, and Benatelli will be the one to try and bring him into the fold. Francisco Miller only a further, what is there, 7 points behind, and will Ian P3 having to be aware of the fact that he does have Rafael Labarto and Marcello Reles only 2 and 3 points behind respectively, and also 3 points behind, but outside the top 5 base result count by Adam Delmont, with John Higgins Jr., Joseph Doble and Mikey Doble separated as the trio, only 2 points between them, but you can see they're both knocking on the door of the top 6, indeed the top 5, and then Andrew Pike on 61 points, well, he's just inside the top 10, given he's only got a 2-point advantage over best dressed Andrea Romy. Wayne Douglas P12 and 56 points are looking to have a strong day, and of course Imola was looking promising, but a couple of near incidents towards the end of the race is costing him dear, particularly missing out on the podium at 1 point, with Martin Shirley P13 ahead of Sam Cam Smith, and then Chris Daines and Gavin Garner rounding off the standings. But you can see how close it is in the hunt to be inside the top 10 as a minimum, let alone being inside the top 5, and long may that continue. But as we then come onto the Pro-Am classification, Alan McCain leads the way in the Pro-Am class after adjustments and drives being shifted around classes after round number 2, and we'll give you an update on who exactly has been shifted where very shortly. But McCain with an 8-point advantage over Michael Lees, and can he potentially extend that advantage today? Reese White in P3 finding his form last time out, and now for what the gamble will be on the fact that he wants to try and get into that top 2 as a minimum today, and Lee Horn on 63 points apiece with Watt, but the difference is result count back, and then Robert DeSunic on 61 points will start to rise and bring on the flavour of form with Luke Jones in P6. So it does seem to be a growing battle and a rising tide for JW Motorsport, but they do have a number of peers that are also itching to be inside that top 3, and then Damon Mulqueen on 52 points, equal to Nick Clibbins, but ahead of result count back with Anando Corbett and Linus Broström both on 40 points as well, and then outside the top 10 by 4 points, and in fact by 2 points, Matthew Addy in P11, and then Isaac Doble 6 points behind the reigning champion, and both drivers having very different starts to the season. Isaac Doble having a promising start in round number 1, but round 2 having the wins knocked out of his sails. Meanwhile, Matthew Addy still trying to find the form that was with him over the previous season, and not quite there yet. Ivan Bolkamp in P13, only 6 points to get Chris Byram. We have Benjamin McCluskey P15, and then we have Jake Pitt, Massimo Boni, Matthew Cheverton, Paul Scott and Dario Rafaeta completing the top 20. And as we come outside the top 20, P21, it's James Masquez-Gale, who has 7 points over both Marcello Felix and Jonathan Collins, with 2 points apiece for Alex Meredith and Josh Brown, both picking up the first points of the season last time out at Imola, and Mark Sykes on a single point. Yet to score points in the Pro-Am class, Daniel Fritz, Jackie Chalmers, Jesmond Tan, Mark Arrowsmith, Melvin Atkinson, Paolo Maniti, Phil McDougall, Philip Bruberg and Tom Bingham. And on negative points due to stewarding decisions, Andrea Talasco, Costa Chatsconsinantu, Daniel Feder and also Dylan Flanagan. And then coming on to our Teams Championship standings, to give you a quick recap here, and do keep in mind, we have had some of the teams be adjusted going into this round. So these are the standings after round 2, but they're very likely to be updated after this round in terms of the teams you see. But it is NXTGEN Racing with Douglas Motorsport, who lead the way by a growing advantage now of what is 55 points over Doble Sim Racing. And, well, it does look as though the leading outfit at this time really finding their feet, but Doble Sim Racing, well, coming on strong and bouncing into P2 at Imola. And, well, they only have what is a 6-point advantage over the Sim Racing Collective. But I think the Doble brothers will feel as though it's now starting to turn their way in terms of the tide. Still don't count out the Sim Racing Collective, nor can we talk eMotorsport, who hold on to P4 for the first time this season, 2 points give GRT Esport, and then we do have iRacing Esports in P6, a further 8 points ahead of NXTGEN Racing Pink, with the RGT Racing Team also starting to build momentum in P8, and it's RD Simsport and NXTGEN Racing Yellow who complete the top 10, and outside the top 10 from 41 points down to 23, it's JW Motorsport, the pair of Jones and Watt, again, as we said earlier, really starting to find their form now, with Synergy Fortis Racing in P12 ahead of Cuda eMotorsport, and then Bright Esports and Aztec Racing completing the top 15. Yet to score points, P16 through to P19, NXTGEN Racing Blue, Performance Link Esports, Chalmers and Flanagan Racing, and Biff, Hornet and Epic Collective. But as we then come from our stands to our circuit for today, which none other than the circuit located near the town of Bowmanville in the region of Ontario in Canada, it's the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. With only one layout available, our drivers will be taken to the full Grand Prix layout of the circuit, and as you can see from the circuit map provided to us by iRacing.com, thank you to them of course for their wonderful simulator and the circuit maps that come with it. This circuit is characterised by its fast flying sequence of corners, but what a two-dimensional image cannot convey is elevation change, and let us assure you, when we go into the qualifying session and ride on board our drivers, you are going to see quite the roller coaster ride when it comes to turns 1 through to 5. For as our drivers make their way across the start finish line, they'll make their way trail braking into the downhill drop through turn number 1, the flying right hander which gives rise up towards Clayton Corner. But the difference here is as you turn into the Clayton Corner apex, you're on a ridge and you start to descend as you head towards the apex point. Clearing that, the road continues to fall away, a lot of off-camber surface at Clayton, and if our drivers don't get it right, they'll find themselves understeering all the way off onto the grass, but get it perfect and they'll carry the speed all the way up to Quebec corner at turn number 3. Again, a challenging corner because it's essentially a rising apex all the way through, albeit very gradual in that rise, and therefore understeer can be invoked very quickly. But as they make their way through turn 3, they'll come downhill through 4 in the rapid drop and the flat out run, where it's all about finding the perfect line to make sure you can stay full throttle as close as possible, and then braking uphill into Moss corner at turn number 5. Originally envisioned in the heart of Sir Sterling Moss as a single hairpin, but the recommendation of the driver, of course, of which the corner now shares the name of Sterling Moss. It was recommended by Moss that, in fact, the hairpin should be split into 2 right-hand apexes in order to generate more fluid racing, and that's why it does have that shape. But as our drivers make the way there, we expect plenty of battling to turn number 5 and on-corner exit, because it's a charge for a kink and all the way down the Mario Andretti straightaway of turns 6 and 7 and up towards the braking zone for the S's of turns 8 and 9. A long right-hander at medium speed, followed up by a sharp left-hander at low speed. Now drivers will make their way into White's corner and up your right-hander to complete the lap and start it all over again, and that will be the change that confronts them. As for our rules for today, we should remind you this is a fixed setup series whereby setups are provided to our drivers ahead of each round by the NXTGEN Racing Administration team, and driver class wise, driver classes shall be finalised as of round 3. So the driver classes you see today, they may be adjusted after this round is completed, but by the time we go into round number 4, the driver classes shall be final. But we're very close, we feel, to having finalised those classes already in terms of our pros and our pro-ams. Sprint race wise, the race 1 grid shall be based on the results of qualifying, as is the norm. The race 2 grid shall be set based on the results of race 1, so the winner of race 1 will start on pole for race number 2, and we work our way down the order to the bottom finisher, who starts at the back of the field. And then the race 3 grid shall be a reverse grid based on the results of race 2, of course with the condition that the reversal position shall be drawn live from between P13 and P23. So that means we cut to the commentary booth and I conduct the lottery bowl draw, and whichever number is pulled out of lottery bowl from 2 numbers combined, that is where we're going to reverse the grid from. So if we use the example of P15 being drawn, that means the 15th place finisher from race number 2 starts on pole for race number 3, and we work our way all the way up to the first place finisher from race number 2. They start on P15 for race number 3, and in 16th place and downwards in terms of where they finished in race 2. That's exactly where they'll start for race number 3. Now in each race, each driver shall have 1 fast repair available, and each race shall conclude after either the allotted lap amount or 30 minutes, but we are expecting the 14 laps to come first, 30 minutes if we do see multiple safety cars. We also extend this by saying that race stewarding is in effect, where there's an independent race director stewarding the races for track limit infringements and deployment of the safety car, albeit penalties for track limit infringement shall be distributed as follows. First, the 3rd warning is no penalty. The 4th warning, they get a 5-second post-race time penalty. The 5th warning, that's doubled to 10. And the 6th, they get a drive-through penalty, which must be served within 3 laps. And racing incidents shall be reviewed at post-round. And also to add that we do, of course, have the success ballast in deployment. And just to remind you that it is applied to the top 10 drivers in the overall Drivers' Championship based on the standings prior to each round. So before post-round penalties are applied, and success ballast shall be applied as follows for this round. We can see it's all 10 drivers who are in the pro class, but Jamie Dorey shall be carrying the maximum success ballast of 56.1 kilograms, all the way through to Martin Shirley in 10th place, who takes 4.7 kilograms in the RD Sim Sport machine. But as our drivers get ready to go racing, we return to the live pictures, of course, and well, we do look to what is Alan McCain parked up in the pit lane at the moment, and one driver to really watch out for tonight. McCain has been looking very strong over the course of the season so far, albeit a bit of a hidden element at Silverstone, but leading in the Prime class and currently P7 in this practice session, and just parked up in the iRacing Esports Elantra. Could he potentially look to extend his lead today, as we also do look to Michael Lees making his way around, albeit drifting his way, it would seem, there for a turn at number 3 at Quebec corner. And I think the NXTGEN Racing Yellow driver having a bit of liberal use of the curb as he comes on down through the drop for a 4 and up towards the Sterling Moss corner, turn number 5, the hairpin if you will. But Lees as well looking to really find that momentum that could be the difference in his campaign as proceedings do go on. But as he makes his way and parks up there on the in the entry to the corner, we also look to major fan favourite Alex Meredith here for Chemi-Tool E Motorsport. And well, we should point out that Chemi-Tool Motorsport have split into 2 teams going into tonight. We do have their base team and we also have their T1 team, and we'll see that update in the team standings as of round number 4. But Alex Meredith in the 44 looking quite strong, and we did see a message from him earlier in the YouTube chat to say that he is looking forward to this one. I think some growing confidence from Meredith. He's been battling to be inside the top 10 in the Prime class round after round so far, but it's looking as though today could be the day where he really does break into that top 10, establishing himself, given the fact he's currently P8 there, out in practice, P17 overall. But as we do say hello to a good number of you, including Alex Meredith in the YouTube chat, and also Elwin Sykes in the Facebook chat, and also to MMRLM in the Twitch chat, and also there to Luca Ivy in the YouTube, and also I do believe there to Nicholas Kalla, and also John Meredith and Paloma Niti and Revical. It's great to see so many of you tuning in, and well, we do clarify there for MMR LM in the Twitch chat that Chris Byron does race in this series. We have had him take to the circuit a couple of times this season. We look forward to seeing him out on circuit again in the near future, albeit I don't think he's quite made it here so far, albeit my eyes could deceive me with the fact we do have now when he's 42 tries of attendance here. We thought it'd be 30 plus, we're now 40 plus, and well, we do have some newcomers on the grid today, and 3 newcomers in particular that we should introduce with haste. And well, firstly, we do have the arrival of Gabriel Yilmaz, as we see here for Aztec Racing T2 or Team 2, number 26 driver in the prime class for this season, bringing the Honda Civic Type R to bear as he makes way into turn number 1. We also do have the other newcomer in what is the prime class of Matthew Jolly, albeit I'm not sure if we can actually find Matthew Jolly on circuit at the moment. In fact, here he is, also in the Aztec Racing Team 2 Honda Civic Type R in the 29 machine. And we also do have a new pro on the grid, and that is in the form of, oh goodness me, it's Jolly there getting it wrong and taking off the front bumper of the car. Bit of frustration, I think we're getting it wrong coming out of turn number 3. But then we do have here the Audi RS3 from Bright Esports, so Daniel Holmer as the number 79 driver makes his way down towards turn number 5, and well, good luck to all 3 of them on their debut today. And of course, Daniel Holmer rejoined us after a brilliant Season 2 campaign. He is one to watch out for all season, but will he be the one to watch out for today? That is the big question as we make our way into the qualifying session, ladies and gentlemen. 15 minutes, 40 plus cars out of the circuit. It is going to be absolutely crowded, I can assure you that. But one thing I can also assure you is that we are going to see some absolutely spectacular qualifying laps. And well, the big question is how much will that success ballast affect our drivers here? And when I caught up with Jamie Dorey in the build-up to tonight for NXTGEN Racing with Douglas Motorsport, the number 13 driver was saying to me that he expects not to be competitive on the straights around here. Now what he means by that is the car still feels rather planted through the corners and fast through the corners than the Honda Veloster M, but as soon as he makes his way out of Moss Hairpin at turn number 5 and onto the Mario Andretti straightway through the kinks of 6, 7 and up towards the S's at 8 and 9, he's got no speed to actually overtake there. It's all about track positioning in the open half a lap and trying to cement it before he gets onto the straight. That's what 56.1 kilograms does to the car, and well, for Dorey, he'll be thinking about getting the best possible qualifying lappings. He's been fast in the practice session. A lot of drivers have been defying expectations with regards to that success ballast. And the flip side of the coin is they need to place 1 qualifying, because as soon as they go racing, it could be the case that the shoe is on the other foot, to use the proverb. As we see Phil McDougall making his way down there for CXR Project Black, coming on down into the braking zone here in the number 83 car. And one of the drivers who really got knocked about last time at Imola did not have any luck in any of the 3 races, and he'll be looking for a calmer race today compared to what it was previously as he makes his way on down the back straight and up towards the SC goes. But you can see here the crowd of cars making its way on down here. You'd think they were racing if they weren't weaving from side to side, and as they head down towards the S's here, really trying to get some tyre temperature in before they go onto their qualifying laps. And it does, despite the fact we have very humid conditions here. And just to remind you of those weather conditions, we can see that on the right side of your screen at 21 degrees centigrade ambient, but 39 degrees track temperature, and that is scorching in terms of when we're encroaching upon 40 plus. And that's when we really are into the zone where the tyres, those front tyres in particular, will feel the heat very quickly indeed. And 39 degrees centigrade at the start of the qualifying session, I expect that it's going to go up to 40 plus by the end of the session. So we may see some of the best laps in qualifying set within the opening 7.5 minutes, and well, time will tell whether our drivers are able to find more and more pace as that qualifying session heads on. But it does mean you have a bit of a dice act here in terms of if you roll the dice correctly and make sure to push hard at the right time, you may get a good lap on the ball. But push the tyres too hard and you end up essentially taking all the life out of them, as McDougall there goes a bit wide, the car goes onto the grass and round, coming on through turn number 2, and well, that's going to be a knock to the tyre barrier, but they're just not fully set up in terms of that tyre temperature, and as a result, a bit dirtier as well. The car just being kicked out wide, and for McDougall, he's got to go again. But as we look here to Marcello Reales, as he makes his way out of 2 and up towards 3, onto the brakes here he goes. We will ride on board with some other drivers after 2 or 3 qualifying laps have gone in, given the fact it does take some time to really get the car up to temperature across all 4 tyres and also the brakes, and we'll see how aggressive our drivers can be once they are up to temperature. But as we do look from what is here, Reles down to Jake Pitt, and we do see their pit in the number 15 Hyundai Elantra, heading on down the round through turn number 2 and up towards 3. pit here, of course, riding on a wave of what have been some relatively smooth results, albeit not the smoothest run into turn 3 as the car lets go on the rear, and that's a knock to the tyre barrier. And well, you can see the front left suspension there already out of alignment and drops, and well, for Pit, he's going to have to go again after a tow to the pit lane. So many drivers trying to push too soon in this qualifying session, and the understeer elements just catch him out turn number 2 and seeing him go to the grass. As we said earlier, when you get it wrong around here and you touch that grass, you are gone. There's no way back unless you've got a very capable set of hands at the steering wheel. As Bernardo Corbin makes his way downhill for turn number 4 and up towards 5, getting himself nicely composed here as he comes into the braking zone. And well, currently we can see they're 2.8 seconds off the provisional pole lap set by Alan McCain. But again, those lap times are going to oscillate in the early stages of this qualifying session. We will normally see what will be a back and forth between primes and pros at the very top of the standings, and then around the 7-minute mark we'll start to see potential favourites for those pole laps and indeed what our top 10 is going to look like in earnest. But meanwhile, we look from Corbin to Benatelli, and Benatelli there finding his way off circuit on the exit of 4, and will parks the car up but takes it back to the pit lane. As meanwhile, championship leader over in the Pro Class, Jamie Dorey, just gradually making his way down the back straight, cruising on down, I think trying to find himself some space. But look at that long traffic jam that's coming up behind, and Dorey is going to be swallowed whole by it. As he makes way up towards the braking zone, he's going to literally just limp the car along. I think conscious of the fact that right now he's going to lose that. And the same for Andrea Romy, as the Audi RS3 driver here, not happy with the way they fitted into the order. And oh goodness me, Romy bounced off the entry curb there into the S's, taking a bit of a scenic approach, and well, I think that's called him out a bit. As meanwhile, we do look from them to our newcomer Daniel Holmer, and right now P12 for Bright Esports, and that's overall down to P13, down to P14 in fact, as more times are piling on in. But we will very shortly be jumping on board up with Daniel Holmer for a flying lap of the circuit, and we'll be interested to see how the Audi RS3 goes down around this circuit, because the RS3 has not been a very strong car in the first 2 rounds. The car, of course, characterised by its top end speed and its ability to accelerate to top gear, but rumour is down the paddock that a lot of drivers are expecting the Audi to go very strong here, given the fact it has that high top end, and this circuit does have one of the highest average lap speeds over the course of the season calendar. But as he makes way into the final corner, we jump aboard with Holmer, and he takes us around for a flying lap. He's making his way across the timeline and up towards turn at number 1, and onto the brakes. It trail braking in from 5th. Will he drop to 4th? No, he stays in 5th gear, collects the apex curve, and then puts the throttle back in as he makes way up towards turn 2. Bring the car over to the right. Blind summit here as he goes onto the brakes. Now keep the car as close as possible to the apex, let it drift a little bit, and then connect back up with the apex and corner exit as he makes way out and up towards turn number 3. Bring the car over to left, onto the brakes here, drop to 4th, get the nose pointed in, ride a bit of the curb to help rotate the car, and then gradually feed the throttle in as he powers out and makes way down towards Moss Corner at turn number 5. But before that, it's the downhill drop through 4, and as you can see here, blind all the way down. Full commitment on the throttle, flat out as he heads into the braking zone in 5th gear, drops it all the way down to 3rd gear, lets the car go deep. You have to try and turn it into a V-shaped apex. He makes his way out to turn number 5. A nice line there for Holmer as he now heads down the back straight and up towards the SC goes. Now he does have a bit of breathing room at this point. He's able to flex the legs of the Audi in terms of open up to that top gear, albeit will he reach 6th gear? That'll be the question that faces him as he heads on through the kink of 6 and 7. Up into 6th gear as he makes his way now in towards the braking zone for the S's. Again, braking nice and early here. No real brake marks. A lot of this you have to do from muscle memory or looking for some sort of spectator stand as he comes through the right into the left, down from 5th to 4th. Brings the car to the left-hand side here for White's corner at turn number 10. 4th gear on apex. Gets the power down, and that's a smooth lap from Daniel Holmer. Didn't quite improve in sector 2, but will improve in the final sector. He does. He goes P3 of a 1:26.575. He's the fastest pro out there. And well, from the fastest pro to the fastest prime, it's currently Lee Horn who's the fastest prime out there, fastest man over on a 26.346, and will slipstream definitely playing a factor around here. If you can find a number of drivers with a similar pace to you, you can gain up to 3/10 a lap given the run down the Marion Andretti straightaway. Of course, the change will be in the fact elsewhere on the lap you can be heavily compromised if you find yourself in traffic, particularly in the first half of the lap. So as they make their way on down and up towards turn at number 8, I think everyone's just trying to negotiate their way around one another once again with half the qualifying session remaining. But we are starting to see some more times now come through for our pro drives, and I think we are in the process of doing so. Going to now start to see a little bit of a shuffle with regards to that time down the left-hand side of your screen. As we see Alex Meredith goes pole position, provisional there. Well, 126.260. Well, he said he was looking forward to tonight. Could this be a circuit that goes very well for the Chemi Motorsport driver in the Elantra? And, well, can anybody find a way to assert that pole lap in the prime class? Indeed, overall, so he was able to take the overall pole. I think everybody will be jumping up and down the garage. Indeed, I can appreciate that, given the fact he is much love for the attitude he takes to each and every race. But he makes his way down through 3 in towards 4 and 5 he goes. Still plenty of time remaining, as meanwhile we do look from him to what is Daniel Fadder, as we can see here. The Honda Street Tyre bar driver currently in P5 with Daniel Holmer taking the provisional pole on a 26.189. So lap time still out there, there's no question about it, as they come on down into Moss Corner. And we'll Fadder here, of course, in what is a top 5 that consists of 4 Pro-Ams. And between Meredith and Fadder, it is only what is 1.6 seconds, if that. In fact, not 1.6 seconds, I should correct myself, 1.6 attempts, as they made the way on down towards the S's here. And will Fadder will be thinking as though that time can be made a lost in a single corner or two, as meanwhile Martin Shirley moves up to P6. We have got a lot of primes who are really putting their foot down. Of course, we do have a lot of our pros, or indeed all of our pros, inside what's the top 10 of the overall championship, and therefore they will be experiencing success balance of some kind. So we are expecting it to be quite the shuffle with regards to pro drives down the order, and that's where the success balance will really start to pinch for them. But meanwhile, Meredith goes P2 on a 26.159, and as we see if Fadder crossing the timeline, does he find any more time out there? Not currently, still got plenty of time to go. Meanwhile, we look to John Higgins Jr., the Sim Racing Collective driver, not having to deal with the excessive success ballast from Imola. Indeed, that has been reduced quite significantly to the lower amounts. He heads up towards turn number 2, and as he comes on through the long blind left-hander, we've got a bit of a lock-up for somebody. In fact, that's coming down through 4 into 5. My eye and stuff to see me with regards to the camera angle as he comes on through the hairpin and up towards the S's he charges, and trying to work with Pike, his teammate from TSRC, as they head on down the back straight. And well, can these two pull off a little bit of magic? Because of course, right now P12, Higgins Jr. P16, they'll be hoping for a little bit more. And the interesting thing about this circuit, there's no one car that really is weaker here by comparison with the others out of the 4 twin car class machines available. As we said earlier, we're expecting the Audi to be the strongest here, but the Honda in its own right can be very effective in the first half of the lap, but it does lose out in the second half of the lap with straight line speed deficit. The Elantra, of course, being the 1 lap pace car, but lacking the tyre durability, that is going to come to make the car unstuck in the races, particularly in the final, what is 25% of the race, or arguably what will be the final 3 to 4 laps of racing that we do see. And then the Veloster is the all-rounder, the jack of all trades, master of none. So we are going to see a bit of a shuffle in the order, although I suspect it's going to be Audis towards the front of Elantras up there, but the Hondas will come through in the race as they do make the way through the left into right. But as they come up towards turn number 3 and through the long right hand they go. Higgins Jr. right now not finding improvement at that time. And meanwhile we look to Rafael Lobato as we do see them heading out to the final corner. As Lobato makes their way up towards what is turn number 1 and on through, we see Cosmos there who's cheering on at Martin Shirley and also asking the question, is anybody else seeing the cars in a lower resolution? If you are having display issues, it may be worth just refreshing the stream that you're looking at, and you may need to take a look to see whether the display settings are showing 1080p at 60 FPS, because that's the maximum we are trying to broadcast at here today. But do keep us posted if there are any issues on the broadcast, ladies and gentlemen. We'll look to fix those as soon as we possibly can. But meanwhile, I can tell you one thing, fixed his way to P2 overall and provisional pro pole. Daniel Holmer here right now absolutely on a mission of 126.1, only 200ths faster than Andrea Romy. It is going to be close to that pole position in the pro class. Indeed, it's going to be close between all of our drivers at this time, and well, I think saying close is a bit of an understatement. But meanwhile, speaking of drivers who are perhaps not right up there in this qualifying session at the moment, perhaps one of the biggest surprises of them all currently, as we do look from the top of the field to a bit further on down. Well, we do look to Reese Watt in the Audi RS3 for JW Motorsport, currently P28, and Watt does seem to be struggling a little bit here, albeit when we say struggling, do keep in mind that from pole position down to P30, and well, I'm just going to make that clear, that's 30 cars, it is 1 second between all of them. So it is literally attempts. It's the difference between you qualifying on, say, what is the 15th row of the grid and you being on, say, what is the 10th row of the grid. Such the number of places that can be made or lost by a single mistake in a qualifying lap, as what they did improve, but it moves into now 7/10 off a pole, and you can see there's a 3/10 of a second gap between himself and Rafael Eders. Meanwhile, Watt gets it wrong, coming through 2, collects the car. Of course, it's literally a wayward machine now, as he's a passenger in the car as he tries to navigate it back onto the circuit, but he does catch it in the end as he comes on through the long right-hander. Well, meanwhile, Luke Jones as well, his teammate, down in P32, and will both try as Sydney, just not comfortable here with regards to the circuit. Alternatively, the way the car's set up for this qualifying session, but hopefully they'll be looking to make gains in the racing as we do see Jones making his way on down the back straight as he heads up towards the S's. It's now coming to crunch time with only 1.5 minutes to go. Of course, we do have overtime. When we hit the 15-minute mark, if a driver's on a lap, they are permitted to finish it. But who now is going to finish their qualifying session on a high? That will be the change that confronts them as meanwhile Andrea Talasco makes way through the final corner. We jump on board here for a fast lap in the Audi RS3 machine as he heads on down toward turn number 1. Going through the right hand here, all the way through current pole sitter, of course. We try to clean where he's able to put the time together as he comes on through and up towards turn number 2. Smooth lines initially, and on to the brakes as he comes on down. Damon McQueen goes P3 in the Hyundai Elantra, so we'll keep our eyes on McQueen. He's putting the times in now, as now Talasco heading up towards turn number 3. And McQueen going for a really late apex there, delaying the approach to the apex for as long as he can. Being seeing where it's benefiting him, he's just able to carry so much more speed out of the corner as he heads up towards turn 4. This could be a bit of a compromise line as he does have a chemical machine, and Talasco carrying enough speed into the corner. I think there might have been a bit of hesitancy in mind as he breaks his way into Moss, and through the right-hander he goes, and as he does, clips the apex curve nicely, the second apex curve in particular, carries the speed on down the back stretch and up towards turn number 8 as he builds way out the gearbox. Now he's got to hope the first half lap was correct, because there's not much else to improve now, albeit the S's can make or break a lap. It's all going to come down to 3 quarters and what he was able to do in the opening 5. Then up towards 6th gear, gradually position the car over to the left-hand side, and then trail braking in. Most likely using the side lights there in terms of the spectator lights in order to gauge a brake marker as he comes up for into turn 1. A bit tight there to the inside of the entry turn. Now, that's going to cost him some time, and Talasco there with a little bit of a wobble on this final lap. I don't think it's going to quite work out as the current. Talasco not improving, and he heads to the timeline. That will complete his qualifying session. A 26.027 is the time to beat for everybody, as meanwhile we do have many a driver heading towards the end of their qualifying session, including Bernardo Colbe, who makes his way into the pit lane. We have also coming on through there, I believe that is Jamie Dorey, and Dorey P28 currently does not improve as he crosses the timeline, so it's going to be a difficult start for Jamie Dorey. Lee Horn comes on through, currently P9. Can Horn improve? He comes on through with Sam Smith also across the line, moves up to P15. Jamie Dorey did improve but didn't move up the order. Lee Horn does not improve either. Still more times to come, including a time from Daniel Holmer. I think Holmer's not improving, or if he's going to improve, it's all in this final sector. So will Talasco take pole position in prime and overall? Holmer, I think, is going to be your pro pole. He's 1/10 off. He does not improve there, so it's looking good for Andrea Talasco to take their first pole position of the season. Meanwhile, further on down the order, Mikey Doe will make his way down the back straight up towards the S is now into turns 8 and 9. Of course, he is running the second highest success balance. That will mean that he's losing a lot of time by comparison with others on the straight, but it's not going to hold him back as we see there. Well, the other Doble brothers coming into the pit lane, I believe that may have been what is, well, can't quite confirm. I think that might have been Isaac Doble, but meanwhile, Mikey Doble crosses the line. He's currently P27, does not improve, and meanwhile, we can also see that Clemens coming through, not improving. In fact, that was Alan McCain. What about Linus Brostrom? No, he does not improve either, and Matthew Addy, well, he's finished his qualifying session, so he is on a cool-down lap now. So that is qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen. And well, it's Andrea Talasco who takes overall and prime pole, and joining him on the front row will be your pro pole sitter of Daniel Holmer, and it will be Daniel McQueen and Martin Shirley on the second row, and Andrea Romy and Alex Meredith make up your third row, and Meredith having a season-best qualifying performance. Francisco Miller and Marcello Areles on what is the full throw, and Leon and Benatelli will complete the top 10. It is a completely back-to-front qualifying order, and well, you love to see it, and it's time for us to go into our first race of the day. Well, as they take to the grid, this is how our drivers will line up for race number 1. Andrea Talasco takes pole position for VRGT Racing Team, joined on the front row by Bright Esports' Daniel Holmer. On row number 2, it's Damon Mulqueen for Synergy Fortis Racing and RD Simsports Martin Shirley, with the pairing of Andrea Romy for GRT Esport and Chemical E Motorsports Alex Meredith line up on row 3. Francisco Miller for Chemical E Motorsport and VRGT Racing Team's Marcello Rez line up on your full row, and the top 10 being rounded up by NXTGEN Racing Yellow's Lee Horn and Marco Benatelli from VRGT Racing Team. On row number 5, it's Gavin Garner and Alan McCain, followed up by the pairing of Isaac Doble and Daniel Feder. And then we have on row number 8, the pairing of Sam Smith and Paul Scott, with Linus Broström and Andrew Pike on row number 9. And then the top 20 being completed on the 10th row by Bernardo Corbe and John Higgins Jr. On row number 11, starting P21, it's Next Gen Racing Yellows Matthew Addy, joined by Next Gen Racing Douglas Mosports Jamie Dorey. And on row number 12, it's CXR Project Black's Phil McDougall, with the iRacing Esports machine of Nick Clemens starting P24. Then on row number 13, it's Michael Lees and Joseph Doble, with Mikey Doble and Rafael Labarto on row number 14, and the top 30 being completed by Wayne Douglas and Reese Watt. And then we do have Robert Sunik and Luke Jones starting P31, P32, and on the 17th row, Marcello Felix and Dario Raffaetta, with row number 18 going to Jonathan Collins and Paolo Maniti. On row number 19, it's Daniel Fritz and Mark Sykes, with row 20 going to Matthew Jolly and Matthew Cheverton to complete the top 20 rows, with row 21 going to James Vasquez-Gal and his fellow Aztec Racing teammate, Jake Pitt, row 22 to Philip Bruberg and Gabriel Yilmaz, and our final car on the grid starting P45 on the 23rd row, it is Adam Delman for Next Gen Racing with Douglas Motorsport. But that's how they line up, ladies and gentlemen. The grid is set and we are ready to go racing for the first time here today in Canada. And well, Andrea Telesco starts on pole with Daniel Holmer alongside, and how will that short run to turn 1 play out? That is the question. The grid is set, we await the lights. 1 red light, 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights, and it's a jump start for Telasco. He's going to essentially have to take a black flag at some point now, but Telasco leaving the start there, a bit too enthusiastic, but we're underway, and as they make their way into turn number 1, it's going to be Holmer looking around the outside as they come charging on through. Holmer there, still on the outside as they come towards turn number 2, and as they do, there's contact further by, and we've got 2 cars round onto the grass. They'll try and hold it together. We'll take a look back at that very shortly, but meanwhile, Daniel Holmer on the inside into 2. They come on down and around, and as they do, onto the brakes into turn 3, they'll go shortly. But Telasco not giving up here, neither is Holmer, as they make the way into the right-hander. And well, who is going to give in? Will either of them give in? That's the question, as they come on down and around and up towards Moss Corner. And with this battle for the lead, it is still raging on, as we can see further back, plenty of battling ensuing. But as they come on down, it's going to be Holmer who takes the lead of this race. They break into the Moss for the first time of asking. But coming on down and around and up towards turn number 8, they'll charge very shortly. Holmer there making a dual dive past Effecti to take the lead and try and break away with the adventurous start, of course, of Telasco, which is going to be penalised at some point in this race, as we're to understand it. But meanwhile, further back down the order, up into the top 20, John Higgins Jr. has made it into P18 for the Sim Racing Collective. A good start for the number 5 car, but as they all come through, it's a long line of touring cars here, everybody trying to size one another up, as we see Jamie Dorey also trying to pick his way on through. Can't quite find the space at the moment, so they made the way up towards turn number 8, and in fact losing out on the straight. You can see that success ballast being applied there in terms of the loss of acceleration in the car, but as he breaks the way and inside by side, Matthew Addy coming on through, and Telasco into the pit lane will have to take what is at least a drive-through penalty, if not the stop and go. Car going round there, John Higgins Jr. into the tyre barrier, in fact into the wall as he tries to get the car turned, but as the wall drives power their way through the final corner, they go into lap number 2, and well, it's been an eventful one at the front and also in the midfield, and let's try and unfold it for you as they come down into turn number 1, and once again, we're making the way on through. Meanwhile, James Vasquez-Gal trying to make the hunt here versus where's Matthew Jolly. Jolly gaining what is 3 places in class 5 at the start of this race overall, so Jolly one of the biggest gainers ahead of Vasquez-Gal, but meanwhile looking from there to up the front of the field after 1.5 laps, it's Daniel Holmer in lead ahead of Damon McQueen P2, Martin Shirley P3, Andrew Romy P4, followed up by Alex Meredith in P5, currently second in prime class there with McQueen, your prime leader. Behind them, Francesco Miller, followed by Gavin Garland and Alan McCain in P8 with Samson P9, Isaac Doble P10, and Vesseris Marco Benatelli P11. As I try to head on down the back straight, and Meredith looking for another move already as we jump on board with the Chemical E Motorsport T1 driver. He doesn't want to settle for a top 5, he wants the winning class, and he knows that McQueen is only 1.2 seconds up the road. But as they power the way on down here, the number 44 car having to just wait its turn as Romy able to use the top end speed of the Audi RS3 in order to just bridge the gap as they break the way to the S's. But there you can see Martin Shirley going a little bit deep as the Honda Civic driver just tries to carry a bit too much speed, and he's going to slow the pair up behind him now as they make the way into White's corner at 10. But coming on through, meanwhile Francesco Miller also there 4/10 off, but you have to be assured that he is behind, he's not on camera as they make the way out towards turn number 1. You can see Romy there taking a peek to the inside, and Meredith just waiting here, showing maturity in terms of looking for an opportunity should the two in front take one another astray. But as they make the way on through, we've got drivers emerging from the pit lane after damage picked up on the opening lap. They'll have to wait for the whole field to come on through, but meanwhile as they they head on down and through turn number 2. We look from what is the battle inside the top 5 to a bit further back, and Mikey Doble, another one of the marginal gainers at the starting class in terms of pro, only 1 place gain, but gaining 4 overall, moving up to P23. The double sim racing driver here on a charge after what is there, Joseph Doble, as they make the way through turn number 4 very shortly, but 5-3 they go first, and as they do, well, the 2 Doble brothers here, I think, trying to work out who is moving the faster. As they come down towards Moss corner, well, they have to wait another opportunity here, given the fact there's no real way to make a move from that far back into the hairpin. But looking from them to a bit behind, and we see it Palomaniti. Well, Maniti trying to put the pressure onto Felix as they come through. Got a car off circuit there, and I believe, unless I'm very much mistaken, that's Michael Lees who's taking a visit to the grass on the exit of Moss, and Lees having a very difficult start to this race, dropping all the way down the order from what was a starting position of P25 to P33. But meanwhile here, Maniti's still trying to find a way past Felix with the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park getting the better exit and launch out the corner. And as they come down the Marion Andretti straight away, well, you can see them meanwhile looking up the inside. That is going to be Cheverton, and Cheverton goes all in, and the Aztec Racing driver then makes it count as they come through turn number 9 and in towards 10, and Cheverton makes the place as now he moves up to P27 overall, P14 in the prime class. But coming on through the final corner and on towards the next lap, they go on to lap 4 of 14. Still plenty to go, but meanwhile we've got a bit of drama further up the order. We've got a car going slowly, and I believe that's Alex Meredith who's gone backwards into the wall, coming out 1 into 2. Now I'm not quite sure what's happened, but as the field all comes on through. Meanwhile, at the front of the field, Daniel Holmer and Damon Mulqueen battling side by side as they come out to turn number 3 and down towards 5 they go. And Holmer here trying to hold off Mulqueen, but Mulqueen eager to make it an overall win, not just a prime win, as they come into Moss Hairpin once again. In the battle for P4, Meredith has been towed to the pits. We can confirm now as the drive's coming through. No sign of a safety car here. Most incidents have been cleared away within moments of them occurring, and as Holmer powers his way down the back straight, we can see here the pressure is building on the debutant today, and well, he absolutely relishes being in the thick of it. I can tell you that if any of you tuned into season 2, you'll know that Daniel Holmer is always at the busy end of the battling, and it's more the same here on his return to the series. They head up towards the S's. Mulqueen looks up the inside. This is for the lead of the race as they come on through. Side by side they enter. They come on towards turn number 9. Holmer holds the inside here. Mulqueen's going to be made to go all the way round, but Mulqueen does not back up, and as they come in towards turn number 10, I think Mulqueen will take the lead and go on to lap number 5, but he's got a long way to go here as they make the way on to the 5th run, and they come down towards turn 1 once again behind Gavin Garner. Another great gainer at the start of the race, 2 places gained in class, up to P5 in pro, P6 overall, having gained 5 places on the grid, up to from P11 at the start. And with the NXTGEN Racing Pink driver keeping his cool and carrying on as he comes on down through turn number 2, flying the banner there for the United Kingdom on the top of the car as he comes up towards turn number 3. A small mistake there from Francisco Milo, and that caused him to be slightly astray under braking into turn number 3, but no change in the man as they come on through. Long right-hander, and will go on there giving the pursuit, but I think also has to be mindful of the fact he needs to be closer if he wants to try and get this done. But as they come down the hill and out towards Moss Bend, meanwhile there's growing pressure behind from Alan McCain, the iRacing Esports Baron McCain, his teammate in the pro class. What is Sam Smith and McCain being a prime, of course, and what I think here for McCain, he's not too worried about where he is so long as he stays ahead of Smith and Benatelli, given that Isaac Doble will then be coming on through, who's the next prime driver in the group. But Mulqueen is your leader at the moment. He's the next prime driver up the road, as meanwhile, speaking of looking up the road, only in front of McCain, it's Milo versus Gardner, and also we can see there a little bit further up the order, it's Romy versus Shirley, as it's going to be Martin Shirley on the inside into turn number 8 through the right hander they go. Martin Shirley just feels a little bit of snap on the braking, a bit of snap understeer kicking in as to back the car out. Meanwhile, Garner versus Mello, and we had the run on the outside to inside. He can't go find it, and it's a mistake for Sam Smith as he catches the car. My good lord. Well, the iRacing Esports driver will lose out versus Benatelli, but I can tell you one thing, he could have lost a lot more there if he had got it even slightly more wrong. He had to catch the car going sideways into turn 10, and how on earth the number 27 driver's done that in the Lancia, I don't ever think we'll know. But as they make the way in towards turn number 2, it is heated up inside the top 10. Meanwhile, further behind outside the top 10, we've also got Fireworks here, as we can see. That's Marcello Felix battling with Palomaniti, and as they come on through, Mark Sykes gaining 2 places in the space of 1, as Daniel Fritz now looks up the inside of Felix, and all the Canadian Tire Motorsports driver, understandably, they're flashing his lights. Also, he was pushed wide by Maniti. I think Maniti just carrying too much speed into the corner in trying to make the offense and defense as they come through turn number 3. Fritz and Mark Sykes both opportunities and gaining as a result of that. And Mark Sykes in the next gen racing at blue Audi RS3, now to P26 into P13 in the Prime class as he comes on down through at turn number 4 and in towards 5. It looks like he's enjoying it out there as they make their way through Moss Corner once again. But as they do, well, we do look from them to Lee Horn, who's just making his way onto the Mayor Andretti straightaway. And as they head on down, well, Lee Horn a bit of a battle now with what is that, I do believe, Rafael Lobato. And it's going to be the Pro on the left of your picture versus Lee Horn in the Prime machine on the right, but now on the left of the picture as the camera spins on around. And Leon with some significant damage on the rear of the car, interesting enough, crumpled on the rear end, and well, I think he's losing a bit of straight line speed given the aero damage, but he's just trying to hold position at the moment. P10 in the Prime class, that will be worth some points as he makes his way on through turn number 9 in towards 10. We reach the halfway point of this race coming into the next lap as they go on to lap number 7, but as they do, it looks like a bit of a mistake there for Lobato, and now Horn's going to be all over the back of him into turn number 1, but I don't think he's got enough gravitas to be able to go for it immediately. But as they come on through it, meanwhile, we look from them back to Daniel Fritz, and Fritz here, well, of course, he made a move on the previous lap of this corner with the mistakes being made between Felix and Maniti, and this time he comes on through, and well, given a bit of space there, couldn't quite make the move stick, but as they break their way into turn number 2, Felix being given the room to operate, Daniel Fritz showing respectful racing as he comes on down through the left-hander and up towards turn number 3 he goes, onto the brakes here through the right-hander, and as he does, well, the risky racing driver there coming all the way through the long right, can't quite find the move at this time, but still trying to make as much of a move as he can as he charges on down. And will the Whiskey Runners racing driver, as I believe the overlay will be updated there, a little bit of an erroneous bit of driver data now reloaded, but he comes through the right under turn number 5, and it's a mistake for what is there, Marcello Felix, as Felix goes deep, collects the grass, and now gets the car repointed, but it has cost him very dear for the number 43 driver, as we're now going to see Jake Pitt looking to capitalise. He gets nose ahead and tries to run away, but meanwhile we won't let the battle for the lead run away from our perspective, as we see here the Suzuki Fortis racing machine of Damon Mulqueen, the New Zealander, heading up towards turn number 1 once again. Into the second half of the race he goes, and as he makes way into turn number 1 with Daniel Harmer currently the fastest man on circuit behind, albeit Andrea Romy matching him for lap time, so it does look as though Mulqueen is not going to be out of the woods yet with regards to trying to hold on to the overall lead of this race. He's got some time to go as he comes on down and through at turn 2 into 3. But he'll look to try and keep his score as much as he can, knowing that every mistake at this point could prove detrimental. But whilst he heads on through, we take a look back at what happened at the start of the race, and particularly the instant involving a couple of drives through turn number 1. And this was contact between Lee Horn and I believe was one of the Chemical Motorsport machines, and further aggravation there for Marcello Reles. So Lee Horn and Reles coming together. So that was the instant we saw into turn number 1 as Lee Horn had to rejoin. A bumper going astray there, not quite sure whose, but it was all coming together. Multiple drives, Lee Horn on the grass and bouncing the car, and my good lord, Lee Horn surviving there what could have been a nightmare for him, as then brought it on through turn number 3. Some of them connectivity issues just behind the Audi RS3, and well, then a little bit later on we did see a bit of battling, including what was the battle, excuse me, for I believe it was John Higgins Jr. on lap number 2, or in fact this was lap number 1 towards the end, and this way lost the rear of the car coming through turn number 9 into 10. The car ended up in the wall, very unfortunate for him. And then even further later on we had a bit of an incident for Rafael Lobato coming on down through what was turn number, I believe it was turn 2 into 3, runs a little bit wide for the Chemical Motorsport T1 Hyundai Elantra, and as he brings it back together, well, there he brings it back on nice and safely, but that could have been far, far worse if the car had carried on with regards to speed. And well, those are 3 of the most significant incidents that we saw at the start of the race on the opening lap. But as we return to live pictures, there you see Damon Queen still leading the race as they head on to lap number 9 and down towards Moss Corner they go. Meanwhile, looking on back here to just towards the bottom half of the top 10, this is Marco Benatelli, and right now the BRGT Racing team driver looking to make more progress as he comes on down in towards the braking zone for turn number 5. Meanwhile, behind there, that's a bold move from Sam Smith on the back of Doble, looking up the inside. That's a back out in the end, can't quite find it. But as we then look back up to Benatelli, who's right now being given a little bit of push along here by Alan McCain. I think McCain wants the Italian to try and make progress towards Francisco Melo, because now McCain has got eyes at Doble behind him, and well, it's McCain and Doble in the battle for P2, the run-up spot in the Prime class. But you can see there, McCain McCain just running on the back of Benatelli and pretty much giving them a hurry up to say, can you please just carry a bit more speed down the straight, and he's having to bump draft him along there. Meanwhile, Isaac Doe not able to match her pace. That is the Elantra strength, but now as we head in towards this final third race, we'll start to see the Elantra's weakness, which is that front tyre wear degradation really pick up in these warm conditions. As we said earlier, anything around the 40 degrees centigrade and the higher mark, that Elantra's tyres really do start to cook and fall apart if they're not managed well. And well, in these sprint races, the one thing you do not have time for necessarily is extensive time management. A small mistake there from Benatelli as he comes on through into turn number 2, and all the way through the long left he goes, and as he does, will right now staying firm, and I think for now this battle is going to subside, although I say that, and as soon as I do, Gavin Garner making a mistake, brings it back on circuit as we ride on board here, looking back from the rear of the next gen race, the pink Audi. You can see Benatelli now thinking about it, but whilst he can get the velocity on the outside into turn 4 initially, watch how this Audi is just able to stamp its authority, given the fact he's got so much speed in the gearbox. And as they come in towards Moss Corner, well, again, you'll see that here as we do see a face full of the Veloster Grill, but as they make the way out of Moss Corner, now wait for it, Garner gets the throttle down. You have the toe of Francesco Milo as well in front of Milo, really leading this pack on, and the Audi able now to open up a couple of hundreds, and that's enough for safety, albeit it does look so the double toe Benatelli will be starting to close gradually, and also McCain is still pushing Benatelli along, and Garner now looking for a prospective move versus Milo, but he's going to be made to look around the outside as Benatelli up the inside. There's contact between the two of them as Garner's turned sideways. He collects the car, but it still trips to the grass. He manages to rejoin in the end, but Gavin Garner being given a tap then lose now. Meanwhile, Benatelli now to defend versus Alan McCain, as McCain trying to come on through here in the cacophony of incidents between the pro drivers, but he can't quite find it. Can he into turn 1? Benatelli covers him off, and Benatelli really getting his elbows out now as they make their way through turn 1 up towards turn number 2. Sam Smith behind all this as we jump on board with the iRacing Esports driver trying to find a way in here to try and get ahead of the two prams, or potentially get ahead of Doble to give McCain a bit of a breather. The two teammates want to work together for iRacing Esports, but as they come into turn number 3, everything calms down, and indeed it's a small storm, it's not an elongated one. But meanwhile, as they make the way out of 3, we look further back to Paul Scott. Contact there and Matthew Addy for the Next Gen Racing blue driver as they come on through, and the Next Gen Racing with Sam Cases at UK, Veloster we should say, of Addy stays clear, as meanwhile Paul Scott then being given the hurry up by Phil McDougall in the battle for P7 in the prime class between these 3 drivers as they come on through, and I believe Benatelli's had an off. In fact, we see there Benatelli rejoining in the foreground of our camera for a brief moment, coming out of Moss Corner, so it's gone wrong for Benatelli. He falls back into this battle, and now Paul Scott's got to pick his placement carefully here, because he may have enough of a run versus Addy, albeit he needs to clear Benatelli first, but he considers penal now, and Addy's just going to hold the inside line and say, well, you've got a Veloster that's rejoined. Let's go and slow on the outside. There's no way I'm giving the space up to you on the inside line. But as I head in towards the S's here, I think Phil McDougall instead is going to try and jump on Paul Scott whilst there's an opportunity. But in the end, he can't quite find it, and they have to stay as they are for now. But Phil McDougall definitely now started to push on and trying to use the Spirit tyre wear of the Honda Civic to its advantage to be able to push forward as this race goes into its late stages. But meanwhile, a bit of an incident further back here at Moss Corner between Andrea Talasco and what is Gabriel Yilmaz. I think Yilmaz was making the move, but then Talasco's come back in on corner exit. Andrea Talasco, of course, with that black flag awarded to him for jumping the start, and we're all now to really make the best as possible recovery in this race, albeit not really coming together at this time, as meanwhile we do look from them back up the order, and in particular we return to that battle between Addy Scott and Phil McDougall for what is P7 in the prime class, P15 overall, and we can see Phil McDougall trying to go around the outside. This is bold stuff from McDougall versus Benatelli as he's trying to make sure the pro driver can't interfere, but I think Benatelli's got other ideas. They come on down the hill, and as they do into the braking zone here, Phil McDougall definitely trying to make himself stand there in P17 as much as he can, but Benatelli, I think, now look to get the better exit out of Moss Corner, and as they do, it's going to be the charge down the back straight now with 2 more laps to go after this one. Race leader's already at the end of the back straight and heading in towards turn number 8, and well, speaking of which, we can cut over to Daniel Homer versus Andrea Romy as they make the way through turn number 9, and well, the battle for the pro lead right now, literally it's a hair's width between winning Homer and Romy as they make the way across the timeline. 2 to go here as they head on through to turn number 1. It's going to be the flying Swede of Homer versus the stalwart of Romy as they come down through turn number 1 up towards 2, and Dale McQueen at this point must be proverbially rubbing his hands together in his head thinking, just keep fighting guys and let me focus on bringing home this win, because right now Damon Mulqueen will 1 second advantage, will feel very comfortable so long as he doesn't make a mistake on these closing 2 laps. But meanwhile, we look from them back to Jamie Dorey, and well, I can tell you one thing, that success bar may be hurting on the straights, but it's not hurting his racing spirit, as right now, overall championship leader in the 13, Next Gen Racing with Douglas Mosport driver trying to go for P13 overall versus the Pro Bernardo Colbe, but I think the Pro drive being held at bay here. Now Matthew Addy trying to get into the fold to say, well, if you can't make progress, can I make progress past you and go hunting for another position? Given the fact that Scott and McDougall more focused on one another now, but as they come down towards turn 4 and 5, no real exchange at this time. Meanwhile, speaking of exchanges side by side here between Gavin Garner and what is, I do believe that's Daniel Fedder, as they make their way up towards the S's now, and it's going to be a drag race here between the Audi and the Honda. Well, it's going to be the Audi that will win that naturally, albeit you can see they're tucking in behind. That's Linus Brustrom, and we haven't really talked about too much over the course of the race in today, or indeed in qualifying, but Brustrom now trying to push for P4 in the Prime class versus Fedder as they head up towards the S's. Through the round they go, and well, Fedder's not backing out, he's going all in on the outside. This is bold from the Prime driver. He's going to have the inside in turn number 9. White flag is out for the leaders, and they come through 9 to 10. Still too wide through White's corner, and White's going to go down towards turn number 1, I suspect, with Fedder is still there. A really good run, and Brustrom's looking to the inside. It's 3 wide into turn 1, and as they come onto the brakes here, Brustrom too close to all. As the back out, he's got Andrew Pike closing. Meanwhile, Daniel Fedder's on the outside, through 1, into 2, and Daniel Fedder makes the move for P9 overall. Garner's going to try and come back once again into 2, but he's gone deep, and Daniel Fedder with an absolutely brilliant move, arguably the move of the season so far, gets it done for P9. To be very respectful racing from the 2 of them, but then Daniel Fedder just wanted it more, and as they come through 3 and down towards 4, 5 they go. Well, Linus Brustrom now will need to pick his way past Next Gen Racing pink Audi as soon as possible as they come in towards Moss, because there's no time remaining. Effectively now it's one long straight and then a couple of corners, and that's the lot in race number 1. But as they come on down around, meanwhile we look from them to your race leader, ladies and gentlemen, and here is the Suzuki Fortis racing machine of Damon Mulqueen, and well, there is the gap. It's defined on screen between himself and Holmer versus Andrea Romy, as we take a brief look to the pair battling for the pro lead. But as they make their way up through the last couple of corners, well, Mulqueen heads through turn number 9, he heads towards turn number 10, and after a brilliant start and aided somewhat by the full start or the race leader, Damon Mulqueen picked up the pieces, and he takes the first overall win of the season for himself, and in the Prime class as well, ahead of Daniel Holmer P2, and it'll be Andrea Romy P3 ahead of Martin Shirley P4, as Alan McCain crossed the line very shortly to P5, run up in the Prime class. It'll be P6 Sam Smith, P7 Francesco Mielo, Isaac Doe, Daniel Fedder and Gavin Garner complete the top 10, with Linus Brustrom just missed out in the end at P11, and then it'll be Andrew Pike P12 ahead of Bernardo Colby, Jamie Dorey, Matthew Addy, with Paul Scott P16 ahead of Marco Benatelli, Rafael Lobato, Phil McDougall, Mikey Dole rounds off the top 20, Joseph Dole P21 ahead of Lee Horn, who parks up there on the grass, Mark Sykes P23, Palamaniti P24, and it'll be Wayne Douglas, Matthew Sheverton, Michael Lees, Luke Jones, Daniel Fritz and Adam Delman to complete your top 30. John Higgins Jr. in the end P31 in a recovery drive after that early incident for the Sim Racing Collective driver, Marcello Felix P32, James Vasquez Gal P33, Jake Pitt P34 ahead of Andrea Talasco, the race leader off the line with a full start, cost him very dear. And as Reece Watt comes across line P36, our last finisher on the lead lap will be Gabriel Yilmaz on his debut for Aztec Racing at Team 2, who comes to the timing line there P37. But my goodness, what a race number 1. And well, so many moments to talk about, but of course we can't, oh goodness me, we can't cover everything in one moment, but perhaps the biggest standout performance, Damon Mulqueen, the Synergy Fortis Racing driver from New Zealand, absolutely flying high and bringing home an overall win as a Prime driver. What an achievement for the 42 driver, and Daniel Holmer as well on his debut back to the circuit, of course, for season 2, his debut in season 3. Well, the Swede has absolutely delivered with his first pro win of the season out of the box, and well, Andrea Romy not too far behind. Other big mention performances further on down the order include Matthew Sheverton at 14 places gained, effectively from the back of the grid almost to P26, the Aztec Racing driver in the 390 Honda Civic Tyre Bar, enjoying the racing and fighting for a P13 in the Prime class, a well-deserved result. And well, it may not be a top 10, but I think the team are going to feel like celebrating as if it was a top 10. Great driving from him. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at the race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries. Well, after our first race of the day here at the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park in the NXTGEN Season 3, brought to you on iRacing, sponsored by Douglas Motorsport, Damon Mulqueen making it an overall win and the Pro-Am win there for Sergi Fortis Racing, ahead of Daniel Halmer, who for Bright Esports brought home the Pro win, just ahead of Andrea Romy for GRT Esport. A well-deserved podium for all three drivers there, with Martin Shirley P4 for RD Simsport just missing out, but to be fair, doing well to make it a bit of no man's land between himself and Romy, and at the other end, Alan McCain, runner-up in the Pro-Am class, P5 there for the iRace Esports driver, and will carry on that championship momentum. That's unquestionable. With Sam Smith at P6, his teammate just behind, a great start to the day for iRace Esports, and then Kimi to Mosport T1's Francesco Milo P7, ahead of Isaac Doble, who rounded off the Pro-Am podium there in P8 for Double Sim Racing, ahead of Daniel Fadder and Gavin Gardner to complete your top 10 for GRT Esport and Next Gen Racing Pink respectively. It was the Bright Esports driver Linus Brostrom there, P11 overall. Best of the rest, and P5 in the Pro-Am class, battling hard at the very end to try and make it a P4, but couldn't quite make it. Watch out for him in race number 2. And then Andrew Pyatt, Bernardo Corbett, Jamie Dorey and Matthew Addy completing your top 15, with a turnaround there for Matthew Addy in particular, and I think he is now starting to find his rhythm to a degree. P16, Paul Scott there, battling hard with Matthew Addy in the closing stages, but couldn't quite find a way through, with Marco Benatelli, Rafael Labato, Phil McDougall and Mikey Doble completing the top 20, and the Doble Sim Racing pair there, Mikey Doble and Joseph Doble, who was P21, having difficulties in race 1, but we'll be looking to try and learn from those in race number 2. Lee Horn at P22 there, with a great start, falling backwards as the race went on, but still plenty more for him to work on in the second and third race of the day, with Mark Sykes P23 ahead of Paolo Maniti and Wayne Douglas, and then Matthew Cheverton at P26 ahead of Michael Lease and Luke Jones, with P29 going to Daniel Fritz and Adam Delman completing the top 30. P31 at John Higgins Jr. after that nasty smash on the open lap at the final pair of corners, bringing it on back to P31 on the lead lap, with Marcello Felix P32 for Kimi to Motorsport, and then James Smansker's Gal, Jake Pitt and Andrea Talasco completing the top 35. Talasco, your pole sitter, of course, having to take what was a stop and go due to the jump start for the RGT racing team, and then Reese Watt and Gabriel Yilmaz completing your 37 finishers on the lead lap. We also did have additional finishers a lap down, and that was Philip Bruberg, Robert Dasunik, Adara Rafaeta and Matthew Jolly, with Marcello Reales there retiring 4 laps from the end, and we also had the retirements of Nick Lewins, Alex Meredith and Jonathan Collins. So in the end, we did have what was a grand total of 41 drives finished race. I believe that the Marcello Reyes will be classified as finished, given the fact he was able to make what was a grand total of 10 laps, and then Clibbins, Alex Meredith, and also Jonathan Collins will be classified as did not finish. But that was race number 1, ladies and gentlemen, and we have still got plenty of racing to go here in Canada. Race number 2 is coming up shortly, and while race number 1 was an absolute firecracker of a race, expect plenty more in the second one. We'll be back within the next 7 to 8 minutes to bring you the build-up. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back for race 2 of 3 here in Canada at the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, located in Bowmanville. And, well, you are tuning in to Season 3 of the NXTGEN, particularly round number 3. And as we get set for another 14-lap sprint race very shortly, the one that's billed as sprint race number 2, well, there's plenty to dissect from the first race of the day. And, well, we would need quite some time. Indeed, I think we need a dedicated analysis show, but we don't quite have enough time to conduct full analysis. But what we can tell you is that race number 1 was an absolute thriller from start to finish. Many a driver finding their way up the order, some having a difficult start to the day, indeed find themselves down the order, and those in between, such as Mikey Dole from Double Sim Racing, battling hard to try and keep their place inside the top 20. But it was a huge moment, of course, in the Double family with regards to the fact that whilst Mikey and Joseph, two of the bros, perhaps didn't have the result they thought they were going to have, meanwhile Isaac Doble bringing on home a superb drive to a top 5 in the Prime class, and also battling hard to be inside the top 10 overall. And we're speaking of Isaac Doble, here is the Double Sim Racing driver in the 65 car, and well, he'll be looking an absolute point from that race number 1 performance. He'll be now looking to carry that through into race number 2. But as he comes on down the arc towards turn number 3, we do take a brief moment to say hello to a good number of you who have joined us in the chat during the course of race number 1, including K-Teams in the Facebook chat, who asked whether I'm doing well in the commentary booth. A good evening to you, Katie. I can definitely say, if I'm not having a great day, then NXTGEN always brightens my day, having the opportunity to present this to you all. But on top of that, I've had a great day, and now it's even better to be bringing on through what is my favourite touring car series. But also on top of that, we say hello to what is there. I do believe Cosmos. We did address it a little bit earlier on. In fact, my memory's not too great here at the heat of the moment. Also, we say hello to Scullion in the YouTube chat, cheering on Alex Meredith. We also say hello to John Higgins Senior there, who is cheering on, of course, John Higgins Jr., his son. And we also say hello to what is there, Revical. And also to Rob Sutherland, who is cheering on, I believe, Martin Shirley from RD Simsport, and also Damon Mulqueen, and also the JW Motorsport boys. And was saying to us in the chat towards the end of the race, said round number 1, Crazy Mulqueen and became our primes, and will definitely, Damon Mulqueen are really pushing that prime status to the limit and battling it with the pros and bringing on home the overall win in race number 1. And can he make it 2 out of 2, given he'll be starting on pole in the second race of the day? And Alan McCain having a great performance as well, albeit he's in the pit lane currently, so we can't quite cut to him. But I believe McCain getting himself set and ready to go. And we are just under a minute away now from going racing once more, as we also say hello there to Tom Zill at 25. And I can see a W there also to Tommy Murphy, and a good W tuned on Alex Meredith, and all despaired a little bit when it went wrong for the Chemical E Mosport T1 driver at turn number 1 midway through the race. He's going to be starting towards the back of the field at this time, rather than up towards the top 10 of the field. But then again, you never know, he'll be battling hard to get himself inside the top 23 as a minimum, because that's where all the eligible places are for the reverse grid draw from P13 through to P23, and we do have that to look forward to after our second race. But as our drivers now get themselves set, looking to another Chemical E Motorsport machine of Bernardo Colbe, and will Colbe find himself right in the thick end of the battling towards the bottom end of the top 20. And well, as they get ready to go, who is going to be the start of the show in race number 2? It was a full start of the line in race number 1 for Andrea Talasco, and it led to a change in the order at the very front. Will we see something similar in race number 2, or will we see a completely different conjecture? Well, let's find out as we take you to the grid. And this is how they'll line up for the second race of the day. Damon Mulqueen starts on pole position, joined on the front row by a pro driver to the prime of Daniel Holmer. Andrea Romy and Martin Shirley will start on your second row, the 2 pro drivers, followed up by the prime and pro pair of Alan McCain and Sam Smith. Francisco Milo and Isaac Doe will line up together on row number 4, with Daniel Fadder and Gavin Garner completing what is the top 10. On row number 6 is Linus Brostrom and Andrew Pike, followed up on row number 7 by the parent of Bernardo Colbe and Jamie Dorey, with row number 8 going to Matthew Addy and Paul Scott, and Marco Benatelli and Rafael Lobato complete the run to P18, with the top 20 being rounded out by Phil McDougall and Mikey Doble. Keep your eyes out for Phil McDougall. We suspect he might be trying to go for a top 10 finish in this one. In what is the 11th row, we have Joseph Doble and Lee Horn, followed up on row number 12 by Mark Sykes and Paolo Maniti. As we come to row number 13, it's Wayne Douglas and Matthew Cheverton, with row 14 going to Michael Lees and Luke Jones, and then Daniel Fritz and Adam Delman complete the top 15 rows, but we await the lights, ladies and gentlemen. 1 red light, 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights. Lights out and away we go once again here in race number 2 of 3 as David McQueen looks to get a good start versus Daniel Holmer. They charge down towards turn 1 and Holmer has a slow start by comparison, and Andrea Romney's immediately going to try and pick up from where they left off come the end of race number 1 as they come on through and up towards turn number 2. It's a more sedate start towards the rear of the field. We've got one car going deep. I believe that may have been Mikey Doe almost going wide as he's got slightly off track, but meanwhile as they all sweep their way through, and Daniel Holmer really right now putting a cork in the bottle here coming up towards turn number 3. It looks like McQueen's just been given the opportunity to run away as they all come charging on through, and as they do we can see a bit further back Sam Smith side by side there for a brief moment versus McCain, but McCain's going to get ahead as they come on down towards turn number 5. In the long charge they go. We have had an incident a bit further back in turn number 2 involving at least 3 cars. We'll get a replay of that when we can, but everyone now settling down on the brake, and we can see Andrew Pike looking up the inside there, Matthew Addy, and also trying to make the move with Jamie Dorey, who gets ahead of Addy on the outside as they come out of the corner with a bit of contact there between 2 cars, and that is I believe Daniel Fedder and Bernardo Colbert. Now Jamie Dorey taking a bit of a rally cross approach, 2 wheels onto the grass, makes it 3 wide down the back straight, but immediately the Gloucester's going to be hit by 51 kilograms of success ballast, and you can see he's falling back now as he has effectively got quite trying to give him the push along as they make the way up towards the S's here. We're charging on in. Matthew Addy trying to fight his way up through as well. Look at the left-hand picture in the background. He squeezes it up the inside there versus Pike, so Addy does get on through as they come through turn number 8 into 9, and as they make the way through the left into right here with no difference at the moment between them, but Daniel Faddo definitely have to dig deep as Colway looks up the inside. Can't quite find it as they make the way into lap number 2, but Daniel Faddo for GRT E-Sport right now unsettled as they make the way down into turn number 1, feeling the pressure as they come on through for the second lap. But powering their way out 1 and up towards 2. Of course, this will give the top 10 the opportunity to break away in quick succession as they come down for the left-hander of turn number 2 here. And you can see Jamie Dorey also taking another peek. And Dorey really right now the man to beat for everybody behind, because he is in the coveted P13 position, which guarantees he's on that reverse grid. But as they make the way through the right-hander of turn number 3, everybody now starting to settle down. But what a start from Daniel Fadder to hold off all that pressure as they head up towards turn number 5. And as they do, well, meanwhile we look behind them to Matthew Addy and Pike, and Andrew Pike right now just not able to find a way past the Veloster as they head onto the brakes. Of course, Pike running some success ballast today. Meanwhile, further down the order, we've got a bit more drama kicking off between, I believe, Joseph Doble, Phil Maduga in front of him, and what is there, Rafael Lobato behind as they battle for P16. Well, everybody inside the top 20 right now siphoning and siphoning up positions as much as they possibly can in the exchanges, and as they come on down towards the S's here, we can see Lobato trying to look for the move, but in return, I don't think he wants to try and peel out the slipstreaks. He'll just lose the speed he's gained. He wants Doble to try and make the move of Maduga into turn number 8, but Doble they're not able to get along. Lobato looks around the outside in return as they come on through the right into left, and it's going to be all the way in for Lobato, and he gets the move done there versus Joseph Doble, or does he? As he goes deep, Doble there giving a tap on the run into turn 10. That's going to open the door up to Mikey Doble. The 2 bros swap places here, and when Mikey Doble is going to be given the opportunity to try and take the fight to the Elantra in front of him. As we were hot on the brakes there into the corner, that's Wayne Douglas trying to look for a move from far back into turn 1, but nothing comes of it in the end, given the long run into the corner's apex. And well, Joseph Doble just able to hold his line, but as they make their way down through turn number 2, Joseph Doble definitely feels some pressure as he goes a bit deep. Douglas on the inside, as contact between the two, and Joseph Doble is sent to the barrier, and well, that's a difficult one there for Douglas. I think a little bit latency also playing a factor into exacerbating that contact, but Joseph Doble's race now in ruin as a result. Meanwhile, looking from them back up to the front of the field, here's your race leader, and well, after 3 laps, this is how the top 10 stands. It's Mulqueen ahead of Holmer, followed by Andrea Romy, then Shirley P4, Sam Smith P5 ahead of Alan McCain P6, Francesco Milo P7, and followed up by what is there, Isaac Doe and Gavin Garner P8, P9, Linus Brusham P10 with Daniel Fadder P11 best the rest. But as they make the way down, you can see here in particular Gavin Garner now trying to make more ground versus Isaac Doble, and Isaac Doble is absolutely going for it here. There's no question about it. He went for what was the top 5 of the prime class in race number 1. Now he's looking for what's the top 3 of podium finish in race number 2 as they come on through at turn 8 and 9. And will they all calm down for a brief moment as they make the way up towards turn number 10. Doble going a bit deep, and a number of drivers struggling with that run off the transition of turn 9 to 10. And it's showing here as Gavin Garner's going to have the run on the inside, the Audi on the left of your picture into turn 1. They go on to lap number 4. And well, Doble is going to have to try and hold it around the outside to get the inside run into 2, but I don't think it's going to come. As Linus Brustrom now looking for the movement, return around the outside, can't quite find it. Can the bright esports driver onto the brakes he goes, down through the left-hander, and as he does, just simply stays there. But we jump on board with the Swede as he heads up towards turn number 3, and we'll hear, of course, the thing is, with these corners being direction change or intake, you go from a left into a right in quick succession. It does mean if you have to defend into one, you're off racing line naturally for the other, and as they come down towards 5, we'll push and get a face for the Honda Civic in front, but he just can't seem to find a way through as they head onto the brakes here, and through Moss they go once again. Well, it's going to be a brief breather here, but I suspect by the time they make their way down the Mayor Andretti straightway, we're going to be seeing a side-by-side battle materialising once more. It's the S's. But as they head on to the power here, it's going to be calm for now. Meanwhile, looking for them to Sam Smith up the road with Smith here and McCain. The two iRacing esports drivers, I think, trying to figure out who wants to be the leader and who wants to be the second reserve. And I think it's going to be Smith here who'll want the opportunity to go hunting after Shirley. But McCain on that inside. And as they come on through, McCain defending there versus his teammate. Well, this will not do, I think Smith will be saying. In the face, got Francisco Mello behind as they head through 9 into 10. But they're fighting for this right now as they come on through the final corner onto lap number 5. Well, it's entertaining for us, of course, but I wonder the team principal down the iRacing Esports garage agrees with that as they make the way in towards another lap. Meanwhile, further behind, you can see Daniel Fadder trying to make it into P4 in the prime class behind Linus Brustrom. As off circuit, that's Alan McCain. McCain rejoined as he goes for a camera shot. He loses out to West Francisco Melo, so he drops down to P7 and outside the top 10, because there's battling going on outside the top 10 as well as inside it. Paul Scott on the inside here versus what is there, Marcello Felix, as Scott goes very deep and almost takes Felix off the road with him there as they make the way on through. And now Lee Horn's going to try and capitalise on the misunderstanding between his fellow prime counterparts as they come on through, but everything stabilises before Horn could start to get his way. And as they make the way out of turn 3 and down towards 5, well, Horn's not done yet. He's going to try and look for the move in through 4, but I think it's one line through and there's no other way about it as they onto the brakes and into Moss corner. But coming on down and through the right hander, meanwhile looking from them to a bit further back to Alex Meredith, who right now finds Robert DeSunic on his path, and well, the number P25 driving the 44 car will be looking to try and get past the number, what is there, DeSunic's machine, which is down at P40, a lap down, and with DeSunic there will just yield us down the right hand side, with Meredith picking up a bit of tow, now getting the overspeed he needs to make this pass happen. And as he heads on down to the Chemical Mosport T1 driver, just trying to push on. As meanwhile, we can see here, this is Luke Jones versus Which Jones Manscapes out in the battle for P27, P40 in the prime class between them. Jones got the authority on the inside into the S's. Will he still have it into turn 9 when there's the switch back? He does indeed, as Vasquez Gal just does not have the run the Aztec racing machine to try and counter-attack through 9 into 10. And towards the end of the current lap, they'll go on to lap number 6 as they charge to the timeline. Onto the brakes, they'll go again very shortly. But as they do, this gives us an opportunity to take a look back at what happened on the opening lap, in particular to Mikey Doble and around him. So going into turn number 1, Doble on the outside, they're cold tyres and a very wide line, rejoins just in time. Meanwhile, a bit further back, it went very wrong for one driver, and I believe that may have been Andrea Talasco getting it wrong. Oh, goodness me, no, that was not Talasco, that was a driver in front. But we do take a look back at what happened to Andrea Talasco coming down into turn number 1. Keeping your focus, of course, on the VRGT Audi and all this, goes a bit deep. We see that, I believe that may have been Palamaniti who ended up in contact with Michael Lees, and then Talasco coming on down on the inside, collected there by the Aztec Racing 2 machine. We're not quite sure which car that was. I think that may have been Matthew Cheverton in the Aztec Racing 1 car, but Talasco being caught up, and it ended in disaster for them. But as we return to the live pictures, that was the major incident through turns 1 into 2, and things calmed down to an extent after that, but things have not calmed down on the live pictures because we look back up here. Oh, goodness me, and as soon as we say it's not calming down, it absolutely erupts. Phil McDougall there in contact. Now, we're not quite sure what the story behind that is, but it does look as though the CXR Project Black car being extricated from the circuit very rapidly, and will we take a look back? Bouncing over the curb there on entry to turn 8, goes a bit deep. That's Wayne Douglas on his inside, and collected there by Wayne Douglas. And well, we can't quite tell with that camera angle with regards to who was in the right or the wrong, but the two coming together and Phil McDougall being at the recipient on the bad end of it. But meanwhile, as we now come back to your live pictures, go to lap number 7, we look from P29 all the way up to your leader, and here is Daniel McQueen at the moment, still leading with Daniel Holman and Andrea Romy behind, and well, as they make the way through turn number 5 and down towards the S's they go once again. McQueen just seemingly in a world of his own right now, 9/10 clear. Holman is closing a little bit on the last couple of laps. He has started to bring that gap down, although I say that, in fact, McQueen putting the fastest lap of the race in on the previous lap at 26.31, absolutely setting the time tower light by 3/10 compared to anybody else in terms of fastest laps. And perhaps right now Holman just trying to close up where he can on the straights, but it's in the corners where Daniel McQueen just seems to be in a world of his own, and Andrea Romy behind, still trying to put the pressure on Tom, and this is not what Holman wants in terms of battling for the overall lead. He's got to fight for the pro lead here, and I think he's trying to get the message through to Andrea Romy. Can we not just have a truce for a brief moment? Well, Romy's had enough of truces. He's going all in on the attack into turn 1, and as they come through the right hander, well, Holman's going to hold the outside to inside, but I don't think he's going to have enough, or is he? He's going to have to really go late on the brakes here into the drop, and Romy just sweeps around the outside there and thinks he's got it done. But as they make the way up towards turn number 3, we look back from the rear of Andrea Romy's car in the GRT eSport machine, and the Italian right now finally getting the upper hand on the Swede who thwarted him in race number 1. And could we now see Romy go hunting after McQueen with half the race still to go? And well, of course, it may be now that the cork has been extracted from the pace bottle of Andrea Romy's car, and this is where we could see the pro leader go on the hunt, or could we see Daniel Holman come back at him now that Holman is going to be the hunter rather than the hunted? Well, of course, it's two different tones in terms of racing, but as they make the way out of Mosport and down the back straight, we look to Alan McCain, who's still behind at Francesco Nillo as they head up towards the S's, and you can see there McCain getting very close in the battle of P6 overall as they power their way on down into the next braking zone. They'll go very shortly, but McCain looking around the outside, and as he does, well, Melo's not going to give a quarter here as they head on to the brakes, and well, McCain sensibly just waits. Meanwhile, further back, Jamie Dorey here in the Veloster carrying a lot of excess baggage, and as they come through turn number 8, through the right they go, and he's holding on to Lovato there as he makes his way in P13 on towards the end of this lap. You can see how right now he's building up a whole train of cars who all want to get on through, and that Veloster of Dorey's for that 51.6 kilograms of success ballast, it must be absolutely painful to sit behind on the straights, because you just want to get past it. It has no speed on the straights, but what it does have is a lot of rear stability with that weight, plus also the fact it's got a very capable driver at the helm who is able to carry all the speed through the corners. But as they make the way down and through turn number 2, they've got Fernando Corbe, who's had a bit of a mincemeat of a run through turn number 1, or he's converted into a ham sandwich, we should really say, and now as they come through the right hander and onwards towards turn number 5, it's going to be for Jamie Dorey an opportunity to get a little bit of toe from Corbe. In fact, he's going to try and make a move there, because I think Corbe's not on the pace. Meanwhile, we jump on board with Mikey Doble, and with the Doble Sim Racing driver up to P15, 5 places gained overall. Hasn't gained a single place in the Pro class so far in this race. We want to try and get past Lovato and Dorey, having to wait there as long as he can before getting back on the throttle. Patience being a key factor, and you see Dorey now off of the slipstream there of Colbain. Immediately Lovato's going to be given the run. Now Doble's going to invest by tucking into the toe here of Dorey. The idea being this may help him versus Matthew Addy's coming up behind. I think Doble would maybe play in his bets behind the wrong horse as they made the way up towards the S's. Still wants to clear Dorey soon. Of course, Dorey and Doble, friends but also great rivals on circuit as they made the way through turn number 8, and Dorey there struggling a little bit on the approach to the corner, but Doble up the inside, and as they come through turn number 9 into 10, well, Dorey's going to be still there. Doble looks all the way round. He can't quite run on the outside, but he'll cut it back to the inside. He gets a clear run out of the corner, and as they make the way towards turn number 1, this will be what Doble needs in order to gain a place overall and also in class for the first time in this race. But Dorey is still there on corner exit. It's too wide up towards 2. Now Doble's got to fully commit if he wants to get this done. He can't quite do it, and Dorey frustrates him again as they come down through 2 and in towards 3. They go onto the brakes very shortly, but as they come up towards the braking zone, meanwhile looking from them to a little bit further back behind them, we do have Paul Scott now trying to make some progress up towards Adam Delmont, and he's battling for his P18 with Delmont overall but not in class, and Lee Horn just behind Paul Scott, fellow prime driver, rounds off your top 20 overall. But we also also got more battles heading on, including the battle here between Jake Pitt and James Vasquez-Gal, the two Aztec Racing teammates who have recently come to blows to a degree, albeit now it's going to be Pitt all over the back of Vasquez-Gal as they make the way down, flashing his lights there. I think trying to say to his teammate, let me go, you're costing me time, and I can potentially go hunting later on this race. Albeit I think with the fact that Reese Watt is 7 seconds up the road currently, I think Luis Vasquez-Gal has another idea as they come through. Had a car off at the Mosport corner, and that was Robert Sunix had a bit of a moments ago. But in fact, as they made their way on down the back straight, Pitt still trying to find a way on through, just has not got enough momentum here. The two Elantras, and both flashing their lights there. I think both trying to signal to one another, stay in formation, or perhaps they just know they're on camera, one of the two. But either way, no progress being made. But I think Pitt now trying to take a look up the inside as they head under, breaking into the S's, and Vasquez-Gal just simply saying, no, you don't. But meanwhile, we look from them back inside the top 10, and as they go on to lap number 11, here is the number 8 car of Francisco Mielo as he makes his way through to into 3. He's still got Alan McCain behind him. McCain trying to make more overall places here, and well, in making progress now, is it worth it will be the question. It'll gain him some more points in the overall classification, but it will also cost him some further places when it comes to that partial reverse grid that's coming up shortly. So I think McCain's now got to think about what's worth more. Is it worth one more place overall, or is it worth in fact giving yourself one better placement on that reverse grid? Well, I think in the mind of McCain, it's all about gaining points as much as he can. You can understand that's the racer's instinct. When you're behind the wheel, the strategy goes out the window to an extent when you're right in the thick of it. But as they make the way down the backstretch, Mielo here under huge pressure from McCain, and the prime driver right now doing everything he can to unsettle the pro Mielo as they head up towards the S's. Too wide, they'll go into the braking zone for the corner, but how will they emerge? That'll be the challenge here as they come through. Well, in the end, McCain's going to tuck back in initially. Mielo's still there in the middle of the road, and McCain can't quite find it as they come through 9 and up towards 10. As they come out of that corner and in towards the next lap, they charge. Meanwhile, ahead of them, we do have the growing battle between Romy and Holmer. In fact, the battle right now has stagnated to a degree, and the fact it's 4 attempts between them, albeit they're not closed up to Mulqueen at a rate of knots, albeit on that last lap, Romy did take 2 attempts out of Mulqueen's lead, albeit when you've only got 3 laps to go, including this one, and in return, now a gap of 1.7 seconds to Mulqueen. I think Dale Mulqueen will just want to take a little bit out of the car now in order to just feel safe with regards to the run to the end of this race, and the pressure's on Romy and Holman to respond. But from them, meanwhile, looking to the end of the top 10, and where we start the best of the rest with Daniel Fadder in P11, the GRT eSport driver trying to go on the offensive versus Linus Broström as they head down through 4 and into 5. Both drivers here fighting for what is P4 in the Prime class. Broström holding the position just off the back of Isaac Doble, and all 3 of these drivers superstars in their own right in class today, having some of their best performances of the season. Broström and Fadder and Doble all up there for the first time enjoying this race in by the mile. But as they make the way up towards turn number 8 towards the S's, I think Isaac Doble feels safe with 1 second advantage in the Honda Civic. Meanwhile, Broström having the speed in the Elantra, but Fadder absolutely having the manoeuvrability in the corners to stay close in his own Honda Civic Type R as they come through the S's. Broström starting to struggle a little bit with some understeer there, and he's had to cut the speed of the car as they come through turn number 9. Well, it's going to be Fadder who takes a little look on the inside to the outside. He can't find it, but as they make the way out the corner, the Swede Broström definitely now starting to feel as though the car's going against him as they make the way in towards turn number 1. 2 laps to go, and with Daniel Fadder, if he can make this move count, I think all he's got to do for now is keep the pressure on, be relentless in that barrage, and if he does, then it could be a mistake for Broström, or the car will just give way as he does go a little bit deep there too. And Fadder's immediately going to come down the hill and go all onto his rear bumper as they come in towards turn number 3. It's side by side of corner entry, going around the outside. Daniel Fadder's going to commit to this, but Broström will run him as wide as he can as they make the way on down, because he's got to give us space in the end. Meanwhile, we've got an instant further back, and that's Michael, in fact that's Wayne Douglas and Jamie Dorey coming together. Meanwhile, on the camera focus at the moment, Fadder looking around the outside of Broström into Moss corner, 2 wide on entry, 2 wide all the way through to the exit, and it's not over yet between the 2 of them. You would think they're battling for the win of the race, from to them, this P4 is the win in the Prime class as far as they're concerned, and as they make the way down the back straight, Rafael Lobato is closed up. Tissa wants to get involved now. He wants overall position, understandably, to gain some more points overall, but I don't think he wants to get involved in this because it's going to be 3 wide, otherwise it's towards turn number 8. And you'll see Lobato taking a look work up the inside. He can't quite find the space. It's Bush on the left of your picture, Fada on the right of your picture. In towards the S's they go, and Fada's still there. Why knows he's ahead now to turn right. I think Bushman might have to start giving in, or will he? No, he doesn't. He stays there. Great race in between as they head for the final corner. Bushman gets his elbows out, coming out to turn number 10. They go on to the next lap, but Fada has to back off for now. But white flag is out. 1 lap remains, and as they come down to turn number 1, it's going to be Lamar's up the inside of Fada, and he's going to put a spanner in the works here for Fada, in the fact that Brusham's going to be given all the space to play with as they come up towards turn number 2. Onto the brakes they go through the long left hand, and they all go line to stern as Lobato loses out. But meanwhile, from them back to Mikey Doble. Mikey Doble looking to make more ground versus Fernando Colway. Looks like the inside. Colway switches it back to the inside, short notice, but gets it done there just in time. I think he'll be given a warning if he does that again, given the fact driving standards. But as they make their way down towards turn at number 5, all the way through they go, and driving standards, of course, making late moves under braking. Got to be careful of those, but as they head in towards turn number 5, no change this time. But meanwhile, looking from them to your race leader. Well, here he is, ladies and gentlemen, Damon Mulqueen, and as he powers his way on down the back straight, he's got a bit of a field up between him and the checkered flag. He's not going to close up to it before he reaches the end of this race. But having started on pole, it has been a smooth run from the start. And after some early pressure from Daniel Holmer, he's never looked back with Holmer to focus for Andrea Romy. And as he comes through the final corner, he's going to make it 2 out of 2, not just in the prime class, but overall, as Damon Mulqueen takes another win here in Canada, ahead by 1.8 seconds. Andrea Romy is your pro winner. Daniel Holmer P3, Martin Shirley P4, and it'll be Sam Smith P5, Francisco Miller P6, Alan McCain P7, and Gavin Garner with Isaac Doble making it onto the prime podium, P9 overall, P3 in class. And I think the Doble Sim Racing team will be absolutely proud of the youngest member of the Doble family out of the circuit. Linus Broström holds on in the end to P4 in the prime class, P10 overall ahead of Daniel Fada. We've got Rafael Lobato, Fernando Colby, Mikey Doe and Adam Delwant round off the top 15. Paul Scott P16 ahead of Alex Meredith, with Andrew Pite, Dario Ferta and Marcello Felix P20. Luke Jones P21 in a good drive for the JW Motorsport driver ahead of Reese Watt. The two of them look inseparable, and be fair with their liveries, you can understand why when they're in the same camera they get all the eyes looking. It's a beautiful livery of the car, and they come home together. P12, P22 once again. Jake Pitt P23 ahead of James Vasquez Scale, and then Matthew Shepperton rounds off the top 25 with Phil McDougall P26, Alan Maniti P27 ahead of Philip Bruberg. Jonathan Collins will shortly come on home for what will be P29 here, trying to hold off Joseph Doble to the end, but I think he will have enough clearance to the finish line to make sure that Doble finishes in P30, and then it will be John Higgins Jr. P31 after a difficult second race of the day ahead of Jamie Dorey P32, with that late incident between himself and Wayne Douglas cost him dear. P33 for Lee Hornick ahead of Matthew Jolly. P34 for the Aztec Race T2 driver, and then Wayne Douglas P35, the last finisher on the lead lap, albeit having to be pushed along here. I'm not quite sure what's gone wrong with the car for Wayne Douglas, but something has broken. He's been pushed to the end, and those will be your last finishers on the lead lap. And as we see our drivers who have already finished gradually cooling down and making their way into the pit lane. What a brilliant race up and down the field, and again some huge highlight moments, not just to mention Damon Mulqueen's win in the prime class and Andrea Romy finally finds a way ahead of Daniel Holmer, but again Isaac Doe bringing on home his first podium of the season in the prime class, and I believe his first podium since his start in his career in the NXTCC, and what a brilliant drive there for him. Also for Dario Raffaetta having a great race for the VRGT at Racing Team P19, and what was P9 in the prime class in the end, really turned around, having started from effectively what was, P31 overall and making places by the dozen. And well, for the number 7 try, that puts him in contention, of course, for a reverse grid position if it does come on through. But we are still just waiting for our final drivers to come through. In fact, we have had Wayne Douglas have to be towed to the pit lane, so it does mean all results are in. And well, let's take you through those race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries. Well, as we can see there, Damon Mulqueen, your winner, 2 out of 2 for the New Zealander for Synergy Fortis Racing overall in the prime class, ahead of GRT Esports Andrea Romy, who was your pro winner, and Bright Esports Daniel Holmer round off your overall podium. Martin Shirley P4 for RD Simsport, and again in another silent but deadly performance in terms of making sure to be on the pro podium. He rounded off the pro podium, Andrea Romy, Daniel Holmer and Martin Shirley, with Sam Smith P5, the iRacing Esports driver, again battling to a top 5 finish ahead ahead of Francisco Miller for Chemical E Motorsport 1, and then Alan McCain, P7, your prime runner-up for iRace Esports, in a deserved 7th place, ahead of Gavin Gardner, with Isaac Doble and Linus Brostrom completing the top 10. Special mention, of course, to Damon Mulqueen, Alan McCain and Isaac Doble, the trio rounding off the Pro and Podium, with Isaac Doble there for Doble Sim Racing, having his best result of his NXTCC career so far, and then Linus Brostrom battling hard to that P10 for Bright Esports, ahead of Daniel Fadder. Brilliant racing between the two of them, but in the end, the GRT Esport driver losing out on the final lap. Rafa Lobato P12 there for Chemical E Motorsport T1, ahead of his fellow Chemical E Motorsport driver Bernardo Colbe, and then Mikey Doble and Adam Delman completing the top 15. Looking further on down the order, we can see at P16 Paul Scott, a stronger performance for Paul Scott in this race. Alex Meredith recovering all the way from the back of the field, and pointed out to us by John Meredith there in the YouTube chat, and indeed an outstanding drive for the Chemical E Motorsport T1 driver to go from what was essentially the back 4-5 rows of the grid all the way up to P17, and then Andrew Pike P18 ahead of Dario Raffaetta and Marcello Felix, with Luke Jones at P21 there, just missing out in the top 20, and Reese Watt just behind him for JW Motorsport. The two teammates finishing together once again. Jake Pitt, P23, finding a way to stay ahead of James Vasquez-Gal to the end. The two Aztec Racing drives, with Matthew Cheverton rounding off the trio of teammates there in P25, ahead of Phil McDougall, and then Paolo Maniti and Philip Bruberg completing at the top 28. And as we continue our way on down there, Jonathan Collins, P29, ahead of Joseph Doble, who round off your top 30, with John Higgins Jr., P31, ahead of Jamie Dorey, and then Lee Horn and Matthew Jolly completing all finishers on the lead lap from P1 through to P34. Wayne Douglas with that toe to the pits right at the end at P35, a lap down classified at the finish, with Michael Lees P36, Matthew Addy P37 and Nick Clemens P38. And as we continue on down there in terms of drivers that finished the lap down, Robert Dasunik, Mark Sykes and Gabriel Yilmaz to P41 all finished the lap down in the race, with Daniel Fritz finishing 3 laps down for Whiskey Runners Racing. And then we had the 3 retirements of Andrea Lasco, Marcello Reales and Marco Benatelli, and that in the end means that 45 started, but only 42 made the effective finish line. But now, of course, ladies and gentlemen, that was our second race of the day, but we're not quite done just yet, because we do have one more race to go, and well, as we get ready to go into that one, it is time for us to, of course, conduct the reverse grid draw. And as we transition into the commentary booth, good evening to you all, ladies and gentlemen. It is time, of course, to do the lottery draw. And to remind you of what we do, we have the lottery bowl here with the numbers 6 through to 12. We're going to close our eyes and then very shortly draw 2 bowls out of the lottery bowl. And then we'll add those numbers together and see whether it is between P13 and P23. So without closing my eyes, here we go. And we'll do our draw for the first number. And our first number of the day is 10, so we do have quite a high number to begin with, so I suspect this is going to be at least the latter half of all the numbers available. We close our eyes once more, and we draw a number. And our second number, well, it is going to be an absolutely packed grid, because it is 10 and 12. P22 is the reversal position, and that means it is going to be a JW Motorsport lockout on the front row. The two primes of Reese Watt and Luke Jones will start on the front row, with Reese Watt finding himself in pole position. Well, you couldn't make this up, ladies and gentlemen. It is going to be a sensational race number 3 of the day, and we'll be back in approximately 5 to 8 minutes to bring it all to you and more. Stay tuned, we'll be back shortly. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back then for the build-up to our third and final race of the day here in round 3 of the NXTGEN, brought to you live from the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park in Bowmanville, Ontario, Canada. And what a first 2 races we have had. We have had thrillers, we have had unexpected performances from primes, and we have had pros battling hard in amongst one another, and of course with their prime counterparts. But now with a top 22 reversal, indeed some of you may be thinking, didn't we get a P22 reversal as of last week? Well, we did indeed at Imola, and we are seeing it again here today. It does mean that the vast majority of the cars that could be reversed have been, with the maximum being 23 in total. So we're practically there to the maximum, and we have got an absolute spectacle on our hands for the final race of the day. Because it's not just going to be a JW Motorsport lockout on the front row for what will be the pair of Reese Watt and Luke Jones, but also it does mean that a lot of drivers who have had great performances in the first couple of races of the day are now going to have the utmost demanded out of them. And well, Damon Mulqueen in particular, he will need to come from P22 through the order and do as much as he can in order to dent his way into what will be the lead that any of his prime peers will start further upgrade. And also for other drivers will be Isaac Doble, who finds himself after running inside the top 10 comfortably for the first 2 races, but at the same time battling hard and round it off with a podium in the last race. He'll now find himself in a position whereby if he wants to make it another podium to wrap up the day, he is going to have to go all in. This also does mean that a number of drivers who have had difficult races now find themselves with a new opportunity. And to give you an example, one driver who has benefited to some degree, it is of course Luke Jones here, and find himself on that front row. And well, if he and his teammate can steer clear of one another and run away with proceedings early on, they could find themselves on the prime podium. But then again, other drivers will be looking to find a way to stop them, and well, those do include the likes, of course, of what is there, I do believe, will be Alex Meredith, albeit the Capital E Motorsport T1 driver will be starting from what will be just outside of that inverse grid. So as a result, he will need to try and fight his way through as soon as possible, but he'll be very likely on the heels of the fastest drivers in the prime class from the outset, given the fact they've been reversed so aggressively in the field. So there's plenty to look out for in this final race of the day. We could see some even better performances from our drivers now. Of course, the final race of the day brings out the very best in everybody, because everybody wants to end on a high. And well, speaking of a high, Andrew Pike getting himself set for the Sim Racing Collective here. And well, he was the first one to say in the driver's paddock room with regards to, didn't we have 22 last time? And well, when we confirmed to him, yep, it's 22 once again. I think right now he'll be feeling confident this could be a time to shine in the number 99 machine. But as he gets ready to go, we do say hello to a good number of you in the YouTube chat who have joined us since race 2, including Catherine Meredith and also Phil McDougall, who has had an absolutely challenging set of races. The first race was a much more comfortable one compared to the second one, but he'll be looking to try and have a good end today for 6R Project Black. And we also say hello to Jerry, race car driver there in the YouTube chat. Good evening to you, Jerry. Hope you're doing well. Now, we did say much earlier in the broadcast that we had a couple of driver class changes, which we're going to talk about before we went racing. We never quite talked about them, so let's just give you a quick update on those whilst we have got a 30-second gap, in the fact that 3 drivers were promoted and 2 drivers were demoted in the respective classes. We have the 3 promotions from round 2 of Marco Benatelli, Rafael Lobato and Andrea Romy from Prime to Pro, and the demotions included Nick Clibbins and Phil McDougall from Pro to Prime. Again, we could see some last-minute class changes going into round number 4, but do keep in mind that after tonight the classes will be finalised from round 4 onwards, so therefore I think any changes will be by exception today, and indeed after that point any changes that are made will be by extreme exception, at the agreement of course of the organisers and the stewards and also the drivers. But as we get ready to go racing, checker flag is out in this final warm-up practice session. It is time, ladies and gentlemen, for race 3 of 3, and who will come home with the spoilers here in Canada for the final time. Well, as our drivers make the way to the grid, this is how they'll line up for the final episode. Reese Watt takes pole position for JW Motorsport, joined by his teammate Luke Jones on the front row. Behind the 2 primes, we have fellow primes Marcello Felix and Dario Raffaetta, and then they will be followed up by the pair on the 3rd row, your pro pole sitter Andrew Pike from the Sim Racing Collective, and Alex Meredith, in fact, does find his way up there into the order. He starts P6 for Capital E Motorsport. It's time for redemption, as Rivakal says. Then we do see Paul Scott and Adam Delman starting on the 4th row of the grid, with Mikey Dover and Bernardo Colbe completing at the top 10. Rafael Lobato and Daniel Afada complete the run to the 6th row, with the 7th row going to the pairing of Linus Broström and Isaac Doble. And then at row at number 8 goes to Gavin Gardner and Alan McCain, with Francisco Miller and Sam Smith on the 9th row. The top 20s round off by Martin Shirley and Daniel Holmer, with Andrea Romy and Dale Mulqueen on row number 11. And then Jake Pitt and James Mascasgal start on your 12th row. Behind them on the 13th row will be Matthew Cheverton and Phil McDougall. But it's time for us to go racing, ladies and gentlemen, and well, we look to the lights. 1 red light, 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights. And it's lights out and away we go for the final time today. It's race 3, 14 laps and underway as they make their way down towards turn number 1, and Reese Watkins a good start. Jones just tucks in behind here. It's calm between the two mates between turns 1 and 2. But further back, meanwhile, Andrew Pike and what is there to already getting accustomed to one another. Pike gaining 2 places off the line. The Sim Racing Collective Drive is going for it. He knows he's got to go early because otherwise he will have pros starting to come up behind him as they made their way down through 2 and in towards 3. Meanwhile, Adam Delwell on the outside there, battling with the Chemical E-Motorsport machine of Alex Meredith. Paul Scott on the outside as well. Scott goes deep. Meanwhile, Alex Meredith under pressure there from Mikey Doble and Bernardo Colbe. But it looks like Doble's getting to terms with Colbe as they made their way out of 3 and down towards turn number 5. But it's a rather sedate start inside the top 10, albeit at the very bottom end of it. It is starting to encroach upon Bannon as we see the Lobato and Doble side by side through into Boss corner. Both drivers there going hot on the brakes in the Elantras as they come on through. Well, it's going to be a bit of a roadblock for Bernardo Colbe as he tries to get the car stopped. But as they power the way on out, no exchange at the moment. Doble still battling side by side, albeit now without the tow, as we can see the Chemical E-Motorsport machines all giving the tow to one another. Meanwhile, Doble being hung out to dry, but as they power the way on down. Meanwhile, we also see it, Daniel Fadder trying to make some ground here on the leaders Broström. It's a rivalry reignited as meanwhile at the front of the field, we've got Watt and Jones battling here, and will Watt's be given the opportunity to hold the lead for now, but I get the feeling that Jones may have something to say about that soon if we can see that Watt can't get a move on. As they make their way through the S's and up towards the final corner. Further back, Gavin Gardner side by side with Isaac Doble. Doble there being made to go a little bit deep, and that's going to open the door slightly for Alan McCain, but McCain can't find his way on through as they come through turn number 10 to complete the opening lap. So after 1 lap, it is Reese Watt who leads, ahead of Jones in P2. The JW Motorsport pair stay as they were. It's in Andrew Pike P3 ahead of Dario Ferreira P4, Adam Delwell P5 ahead of Marcello Felix P6, and then we do have Paul Scott trying to put pressure on Felix in P7, followed up by Alex Meredith, and then Fernando Colbe and Mike Doble complete your top 10. We're Rafael Lobato and Pete alone best the rest as they made their way down through 2 and up towards 3. Again, Lobato trying to look for the move here, and will Doble in the Chemical E-Motorsport sandwich at the moment find himself being heavily pressured but not giving in to pressure. Meanwhile, we have had a mistake for Marcello Felix. He's rejoined. Oh goodness me, it's got very wrong for Felix. He rejoins now and he's gone straight to the path of an oncoming car, and well, who was that who came in contact with? It was one of the iRacing Esports machines, we believe, and that is a disaster. That was Nick Clement being collected, and Alan, no, in fact that was Alan McCain who was collected there. McCain having the nasty end of the instant, and well, I don't think he had anywhere to go, and for Alan McCain it's all come to an abrupt halt. But as they carry on, I don't think it will warrant a safety car given the fact that the majority of the drivers are able to continue, but McCain in the wrong place at the wrong time. But whoever was coming onto the path would be collected there. Clemens has also been involved in a separate instance. iRacing Esports really having a difficult start to race number 3, but as we see it, Doble at the inside here defending Verti Lobato, still trying to do everything he can to find his way past Bernardo Colbe. Colbe really doing the team justice here in terms of making sure to keep Doble at bay and give his teammate every opportunity to push on through as they make their way onto lap number 3. But as they charge their way down into turn number 1, of course Doble now will need to try and work some magic here to break his way out of this entrapment as they come through 1 and up towards 2. He's looking at the momentum there on the rise. But as we jump aboard here with the Doble Sim Racing driver, well, with the top 7 now 1.3 seconds clear and running away. You can see how pronounced that gap is from this camera angle with Alex Meredith in P7 starting to extract a bit of a gap, and Doble takes a look on the outside, still cannot find a way on through, come through the long right-hander, and meanwhile Colbe goes a bit deep. This could be Doble's chance here. It's going to be a slim one. He's going to have to hang it around the outside through 4. This will be bold if he goes to him, but then he can't quite as Colbe covers him off immediately, and as they come down towards Boss, Doble made his way again as the car bounces savagely off of the apex curve there, collects the car just in time, lock up from a car. That's Adam Delman who rejoins onto the path of Fernando Colbe, and well, now it's going to be too wide in the run of the Moss corner for Delman versus Colbe. Now to Doble as they power their way up towards the S's they go, but there Delman just making a rare mistake, and as they come on down, well, now it's going to be a potential 3 wide cluster, albeit it's 2 by 2 at the moment with Doble backing off slightly. And I think trying to find his way back on the inside to Colby, and behind there you do have Lobato trying to look around the outside of Doble. Delman tucking in behind Doble, and they all go line the stern as they break the way into the S's. Meanwhile, just behind Andrea Romy trying to make a lot of ground early on. He's already gained 7 places as he goes up the inside there of Isaac Doble for P14. And as they come through, Isaac Doble tries to come back at the Audi driver here. The Honda driver from Doble Racing has not given up as they make their way across the timeline down towards turn number 1. But then Isaac Doble thinks better of it, covers off Daniel Holmer instead as they come through the opening corner. But rolling the way for the right-hander, you can see that Daniel Holmer also trying to make some ground, albeit not able to as much at the moment. Further back, Mark Sykes here in a heavily wounded Audi. You can see the bonnet of that car is almost coming off at this point. I think he's been in a nasty shunt at some point. Runs a bit wide there, and well, the car definitely not in a comfortable place as Jonathan Collins fights his way to P28, P15 in the Pram class, and off circuit there goes, I believe, that was the car. Excuse me, and Nick Clemens that is a lap down at this point, steering clear of the rest of the field with blue flags. But oh my good lord, what on earth has happened to Luke Jones? That car's into the air, and it's gone very, very well for the JW Motorsport driver, and we'll whip at that. What on earth has happened? We don't normally see that. But Reese Watt now picking up, oh, and it's Nightmare there as there's further contact with what was, I do believe, the Kerry E Motorsport car, Francesco Mello, who came into the scene of the incident, but it's all gone wrong. We've got a car from Mark Sykes as well, a nasty incident, and well, now thankfully the drivers are able to tow to the pit, but one driver into the stratosphere and another driver coming to the scene of what happened, and all going wrong for the pair of them, of both what was, excuse me, Luke Jones and also Francesco Mello, both drivers there pushing on, and it's all gone wrong for them. But as they make their way on around here, the racing continues still, and we can see Daniel Fritz trying to look for the move here versus Robert Sudik. Back to Sudik trying to go around the outside of Cementer place, but Fritz holding him for now. But the Whiskey Runners race and try to lose down the run to turn number 9, and they now fall back into the opposite arrangement, which is Fritz P30 to Sudik P29 as they head up towards turn number 1. And as they come on through to the right-hander, well, we have an opportunity to take a look back at what exactly happened to Luke Jones. Was he made his way on down here, battling side by side with Andrew Pike, and there was contact between the two of them, and Jones entered the passenger in the car, and well, to the tyre barrier there, back to the concrete barrier, not to the tyre barrier, and well, as the drivers came through, one driver's going to go a bit deep here, and that'll be Francesco Mello of 3-2-1, and just a bit deep, couldn't see a car there in time, and that's where it all went wrong for them. But as we take another look back to that battle between the pair of what was Jones and Pike, coming down the hill, just a tiny little wobble there off of the curb of turn number 4 for Andrew Pike, and the Sim Racing Collective driver, he'll put his hand up and say, look, the car became unsettled. It's always a risk going too wide through there, but I think Pike in the end will be found with that contact with Jones, but that's one for the stewards to dissect, there's no question about it. But as we return to your live pictures here, ladies and gentlemen, we do look to your race leader, Reese Watt, as he makes his way on through the final corner, and will still, one JW Motorsport machine may have fallen, but he's still flying the band up for the team as he makes his way onto lap number 6. Andrew Pike close behind as they come on down and around, and further behind we've got here Linus Broström battling with, what is that, Rafael Lobato. Lobato up the inside, and Broström being made to go a bit deep, and well, I think Broström very short, he's going to become reacquainted with his old rival, albeit he's got a bit deep, coming out of turn number 1, and well, Daniel Fadder's trying to go around the outside. Can he get it done? There's a bit of contact between the two of them, but they just about both stay on circuit. As you can see, Gavin Gardner behind, and it's going to the pair of what is Andrew Robbie, Daniel Holmer, but Broström on the outside here, and I think you're going to see the Pace Watch driver force wide even further now, as Gardner's going to have all the momentum. Car off wide there, that I believe is Isaac Doble going a bit wide out of turn number 3, whack to the barrier as he rejoins the circuit as well, from what we heard from the Marshall's trackside. But as they come up into the braking zone here for Moss Corner, Vader right now carrying all the speed he can and finally making the place cemented as being, well, Linus Broström's just lost effectively 4 or 5 places in the space of 5 corners, and well, one out of sequence coming out of turn number 2. That's your lot in terms of the fact you're going to be out of sequence in the whole run of corners until you get onto the Mare Andretti straight away. But now he'll try and come back here using the toe of Daniel Holmer as the conduit to do so. But I think right now that catalyst is only worth so much as they make their way up towards the breakers over turn number 8, and as they do, well, Linus Broström's got to try and replan and go on the counter-attack as Damon Mulqueen is trying to come on through here. And Mulqueen pushing on as much as he can at the moment, and started, of course, P22 and picking up the places as he goes, but he's got a long way to remain in this race for Suzuki Forces Racing, and he'll know that right now P8 in the prime class is not where he wants to be. He'll want that P7 of Broström, and his next target will be Daniel Fadder, who is a further, what is it, 6 places overall up the road as they head up towards turn number 2. As they come on through and down the round, we looked at Alex Meredith here, still chasing after it's Paul Scott, and right now focusing on chasing after a potential podium, which will be his first of the season if he's able to pick it up, and also an overall P4 to boot with it as he comes down towards turn number 5. Now Paul Scott here in return in the Audi RS3. We've talked about how strong this Audi is over the course of the racing today, and Paul Scott trying to extract the most out. He's always stuck by the Audi, has Scott, as Meredith there goes a little bit deep, trying to get the better run off the turn 5 later apex in order to get all the momentum he needs. But of course here with Rafaita and Pike and Watt all together, effectively Meredith is at the back of a 5-car train, and everybody's gaining the toll for one another, minus Reece Watt, who's using the straight line speed of the Audi to keep him safe. Further behind in the second pack, it's Fernando Colbe P6 ahead of Mikey Doble with Adam Delwin behind, and then we do have a small gap to Lobato, but they can see Delwin looking up the inside here, and Mikey Doble, I think Doble being caught napping slightly as they make the way to a break, unless Doble was thinking of a cut back on the next lap, but Delwin going all in there, and I think for the Doble Sim Racing driver just not picking it up at all. But meanwhile, we look back and we've got an instant here, and that's Daniel Fadder who's gone round. Further cars coming into the scene the instant, but Fadder being collected for a brief moment there by what was, I think, the car, it wasn't the car riser, though. We've got a car off, and that is Sam Smith, who's taken to the grass. But as he rejoins, well, hopefully Smith will be able to keep the car on the straight and narrow. I think with the damage, it's going to have to be parked up on the inside there for Sam Smith. It's a tow, but a nasty instant there for a couple of drivers, Daniel Fadder and Sam Smith in particular. So the two more fall by the wayside and into the pit lane, but as they do that, the loss of a couple of drivers will be the gain of others. And when we look to Paolo Maniti here, as he's got Matthew Addy chasing after in the battle for the top 10 of the prime class. Meanwhile though, we do have to cut from this to Paul Scott versus Alex Meredith, as Paul Scott on the inside and late on the brakes. That's what it's Rafael just in front, and Meredith trying to go around the outside there at turn number 5, trying to cut back, can't quite find it at the moment as they make the way through. We'll jump aboard the gearbox here on the P3 drive for BRGT Racing team of Rafaeta, and well, the Italian right now being flashed non-stop by Paul Scott behind. I think Paul Scott feels as though here he wants to try and distract Rafaeta as much as possible, and was the Honda driver building his way up through the gearbox. You can see that Audi just coming on so strong with top end speed plus the tow, and as they come into turn number 8 into the S's, well, the two battles going to bring Meredith back into contention here for this potential P2, if not a P3 on the prime podium, as they come out to turn number 9 into 10. Through the right-hander they go, and onwards towards another lap. They head on to lap number 9. Not long left in this race now, another 6 laps remaining. It will feel like an eternity for a while, and it will suddenly hit our drivers that are running out of racing time. And this battle does not stop, and meanwhile at the front of the field, Reece Watt trying to hold off Andrew Pike, and of course mindful of what happened in the run through turn at number 4 between Pike and his teammate only moments ago. And now Watt will be wanting to do everything he can to dig in for this win to bring on hope for Jones, but as they make their way through turn at number 3, right now Pike is there looking menacingly as they come up towards turn number 5, and behind them further back Daniel Holm here in a little bit of a freeway fight versus what is Andrea Romy and Fernando Colbe, the two pro drivers of Holmer and exchanging places, and Holmer trying to go one step further. That's the outside of turn number 4. This is bold from Holmer. He's going to have to back off there onto the brakes, and in the end has to defend versus Robbie rather than go on the offensive versus Colbe, with the fact he had to take the speed out of the car. But all in for it is Daniel Holmer. He's not shown any signs of abating. Meanwhile, we look from them to a bit further back to P23, and the battle there overall between what is James Vasquez-Gale, Robert De Sunik, and also Jonathan Collins. And De Sunik's going to get the better run off of what is there to turn 5 hairpin, and as they exit Mosport down the Marangetti straightaway, again you can see the Honda's just got no straight line speed at all. As soon as it's 4th gear, it's just like it's hitting a box of neutrals effectively in terms of how much speed's coming out of the car. And in return, Vasquez-Gale right now just able to return to the lead, gets a bit of a distance off of Lee Horn as well to give a bit of a buffer, and as they head in towards the braking zone, Jonathan Collins trying to look for the move in return, can't quite find it. De Sunik goes a bit deep. The Honda, you can catch that very quickly, and they make their way through the S's, and they stay as they are for now, and as they were going on to this lap. But I think there could be an overtake brewing from Robert De Sunik in the near future, because if anybody can go for a move, he'll find it. And meanwhile, Jonathan Collins taking a bit of a wide run there, coming out of turn at number 10 into 1 they go. De Sunik trying to cut back, he's trying to go all in for the outside of turn 2, and praying that this is going to give him enough momentum and confidence. Well, he's got the confidence, there's no doubt about it, but Collins goes in on the inside versus, well, it's Vasquez Gao and Dasunik holding the outside line, still there, and as they come on towards turn number 3, I think Dasunik's going to have this because they go onto the brakes. Car off there, that's Matthew Addy pointing the wrong way. Not quite sure what's happened to Matthew Addy, but I think there's been contact with Palamaniti potentially, but either way, gets it done, and Robert Dasunik takes P22, and with it, P11 in the Prime class. His next target, Lee Horn, will put him inside the Prime top 10, but as they make the way on down, beautiful move from the Dutchman, we take a look back at what happened to Palamaniti. So this was the Italian for GRT Esport battling with Matthew Addy under braking and contact there with Michael Lees, and that then, in fact, that wasn't Matthew Addy, that was Maniti we saw parked up there. We do apologise for the confusion, but Maniti in all of that, and the car just gradually coming back onto the circuit, so a difficult one for Maniti. As we return to your live pictures now, still another 4 to go as our drivers cross the timeline, and here's your race leaders as they make their way down to turn number 1. Watt versus Bike, it continues, and we've got Rafael who's closed up as well, so this battle is showing no signs of stagnating. If anything, it's only intensifying as the Audi of Watt defends on the inside. It's 2, and Pike goes deep, and Pike's off the road as Rafael and Alex Meredith come through. Paul Scott comes on through. Alex Meredith has found the place on Paul Scott off camera, but what it means now is we've got a top 3, in fact a top 4 Pro-Ams, and will for all 3 drivers, this will be the first opportunity this season for them to not just finish on the Prime podium, because none of them have done this so far, but to take their first overall podium places. And well, for all of them now, Reece Watt will be looking, he'll eventually be the sheep in amongst the den of wolves, for the simple reason they're all going to look at Reece Watt and think we all want this win to make history for ourselves as they make their way through the kinks of 6 and 7 down the Merendriti straightaway. But right now, your eyes do not deceive you, ladies and gentlemen. You have got 4 Primes battling for the lead in this race overall, and then you do have Adam Delmont, the 1 Pro at the back of this group, who is trying to pick his way into it as the leader of the Pro class, with Mikey Doble and Rafael Labarta a bit further behind. But we said that that top 22 reversal was going to cause some magic, and right now the magic is unfolding here as they make their way through turns 8 and 9. But as they charge towards what will be 3 laps remaining, Reece Watt right now, I can only imagine what is going through the man's head as we get a faceful there of the grill of what is Darren Rafael's Honda Civic Type R. And as they make their way to turn number 1, Meredith looks up the inside. Rafael has got to be careful, for as they come all the way up towards turn number 2, onto the brakes they'll go once again. Of course, if Watt can push Rafael back towards Meredith, he may give himself enough breathing room to run away with this lead, much like Mulqueen did to Homer versus Romy much earlier on today, where he was able to cruise away when the driver's behind fault. And Watt right now, he'll give it everything, but I think he is going to be under huge duress until the very end of this race. But as they make their way down towards turn number 5, long charge to go there. Matthew Addy 1.7 seconds up the road. I think Addy will see the blue flags waving and see what's happening behind, as we see there Paolo Maniti taking off the road immediately. I think he's missed his braking point, also respect to the blue flags now. And meanwhile, further back, Daniel Holmer trying to find a place on Fernando Colbe as they come on through Moss, and well, he wants to try and break away from Romy, his rival over the course of the whole of the race today. And I think we have a new rivalry in the Pro class between Holmer and Romy, given how fierce they've been battling. But to be fair, respectful all the way. As you can see here, Daniel Holman left your picture starting to cruise past Fernando Colbe. The Audi just able to extract the pace as they make their way up towards the S's. Well, a bit of contact there between Colbe and Romy as they head into the braking zone. But I think Robbie's going to have the move done here, albeit Colby's going to try and hold it around the outside. Really, it's not enough as they make the way through turns 8 and 9 and up towards 10. But Colby comes back. Robbie's there, pushed a little bit wide. Into White's corner they go. Robbie will take the authority here as they come out of the corner. 2 laps remaining as they head down towards turn 1. Colby's not done. He's going for this all in and into the braking zone and go. It's going to get very nip and tuck. Robbie there's tapped to the car's turned. Colby has to lift on the throttle. Oh goodness me, it's all unfolded, and it's carnage behind as Romy and then is sent to the side of where's Andrew Pyatt's car as Pike and then falls down the order even further still. Brakes on there for Sam Smith, but it's all gone wrong for them as they try to turn their cars on around, albeit on the most crowded part of the circuit and where you do not want to have to spin the car around. Meanwhile, we look back to Reece Watt as he makes his way on down the hill, and as he comes in towards Moss corner this time, there's no change between himself, Rafael, Meredith, Scott and Delmont. This pack of 5 right now all pushing on as much as they can. They all want this win, and as they head up towards the S's for the penultimate time, it's a charge all the way through. Mikey Doble behind in P6 is watching at a distance with the pressure of Rafael Lobato, but we focus here on where's this battle for the lead. As you can see, Rafael trying to size up a move, he can't find it, and then we look back to Doble versus Lobato as they head up towards turn number 8. Onto the brakes they go. Doble defending here, Lobato looking all the way around the outside. Of course, you can go outside to inside here if you've got the bravery to do it, but Doble there carries enough speed to cover off the inside into turn number 9, and in the end Lobato has to cover on back as they make the way up through 10 and on towards the final lap. So as they charge on through one more time today, we take to the Mosport circuit on one more lap of racing, and as Doble defends here for P6, P2 in the Pro class versus Rafael Lobato, the lead in the Prime class, the lead overall heads into its final turn of the race as they make the way down through turn number 2, and we ride on board here the gearbox Ford Mosport car, looking back to the menacing Honda grill of Dario Raffaetta coming into turn number 3. These drivers right now running on the ragged edge. They will be exhausted. They have gone through 3 races which have been absolutely grueling, and as they head on down the hill towards turn number 5, it looks so right now everybody just trying to play the game will be as close as possible to get on to the Andretti straight. As they break the way into Moss corner, this is the one place where you can make mistakes, and a bit of contact there to the rear of Watt's car from Raffaetta. Raffaetta's giving it everything coming out the corner. Meredith's not close enough here, and Watt will have the speed. The Audi has the grunt down the straight, and I think Raffaetta now has to try and go for it around the outside. Watt's not going to give up the inside. You can see he's pinned that car to the track limits as they make the way down towards the S's. It's going to be a battle under brake, and that's a certain. And Raffaetta's going to have to do it the hard way by going round. Watt puts the car in the middle of the road on entry as they come through the right. No exchange at the moment. Watt's only got 2 corners to go, and all he needs to do is keep his calm. One more to go for Reese Watt as he comes up through the right-hander. It's going to be a fairy tale ending to his day at Canada as he makes his way across the line. Reese Watt is your winner for JW Motorsport. Dario Raffaetta, Alex Meredith P3 ahead of Paul Scott P4. Adam Dillman is your pro winner P5 behind the 4 prime drivers. Rafael Lobato found the move on Mikey Doble on the final lap to take P2 in class ahead of Mikey Doble P3 in the Pro, and then it is Daniel Harmon P8 ahead of Damon Mulqueen, who made it all the way up to P9 when all said and done. Isaac Doble P10, Martin Shirley P11 there, best the rest for RDC Sport. Joseph Doble, Wayne Douglas, Fernando Colbert and Jamie Dorey complete your top 15, and then we can see Lee Horn P16 ahead of Michael Lees with Linus Broolstrom, Robert De Sunik and James Smatskas-Gal completing your top 20. Mark Sykes P21 ahead of Jake Pitt, who held off Jonathan Collins to the line for P22. Andrea Romy P24 in the end with that instant right at the end of the race, costing the GRT Esport driver dear, and then Alan McCain P25 as he crosses the timeline ahead of Matthew Cheverton with Matthew Jolly P27 as he's having some connectivity issues at the finish line, and then Gavin Garner will be your last finisher come the very end of this race as he makes his way through the final couple of corners. He's had an eventful one. A good number of drivers have, to be fair. We've had quite a few drivers who've ended up having to take a pit stop and finish at least a lap down, if not be retired from the race, and Garner will be your last finisher P28 out of a grand total of what was 43 starters. But as he crosses the timeline there for Next Gen Racing Pink, and well, I think not too pleased with how things have gone today in race number 3. Well, what a race to the finish line. But Reese Watt, the man in the end, when Luke Jones fell, he kept his cool, held off Andrew Pike, who threatened but made a mistake of his own to lose out, and Watt held off the charge of Raffaetta and Meredith to bring on home the winning class. But to be fair, for Watt, Raffaetta and Alex Meredith, all 3 drivers picking up their maiden Pro-Am podiums of the season, and their maiden overall podiums as well. You could not make this up. It has been a spectacle of a day in the Pro-Am class here at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, and let's take you through very short those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries. We are just waiting for confirmation of them, as we do have a couple of drives still to come through in terms of classification. But for James Smatskas-Gal, a P20 finish in the end for the Aztec Racing driver, and just off of the top 10 for the prime class behind Robert De Sunik and Linus Broström, but still enjoying the racing and battling with his teammate and indeed other drivers. And as he heads in towards the pit lane now, he'll be thinking about it's been a positive day, and still plenty to build upon, as meanwhile we do have the pair here of Matthew Cheverton for Aztec Racing, and what is that, I believe, unless I'm mistaken, Matthew Jolly also making the way into the pit lane in sequence as they make the way on in. But the results have been confirmed, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, these are subject to any stewards' inquiries, and well, here they are for race number 3. Reese Watt in the end, taking the win by 2.5 tenths at the line for JW Motorsport overall in the Prime class, ahead of Dario Raffaetta for VRGT Racing Team and Alex Meredith for Chemical E Motorsport Team 1. That is your overall podium, and with it your Prime podium as well. Paul Scott just missing out on both podiums, but still the Next Gen Racing Blue driver will be happy with his performance in race 3 to withstand the pressure of Adam Delman lap after lap. And Adam Delman, P5 overall, your pro winner for Next Gen Racing with Douglas Motorsport, with Rafael Labarto, Chemical E Motorsports Team 1's driver, coming home P2 in the pro class, P6 overall, and just pipping Mikey Doble to the finish line. Mikey Doble rounded off the pro podium there, and again another strong performance today. That's going to bode well as he makes his way into round number 4. And then Daniel Holmer, P8 for Bright Esports, head of Damon Mulqueen for Suzuki Fortis Racing, who came from P22 to finish P9, and with it inside the top 5 in the Prime class. And Isaac Doble, a top 10 once again for Doble Sim Racing overall, but a P6 in the Prime class. But I think he'll be pleased with that, given the fact he followed Mulqueen to the finish. Best of the rest, Martin Shirley, P11 there for RD Sim Sport, with a 2-second gap to Joseph Doble, and then Wayne Douglas, Bernardo Colbert and Jamie Dorey completing your top 15, with the Next Gen Racing with Douglas Motorsport drive being followed up by the Next Gen Racing yellow pair of Lee Horn and Michael Lees. Linus Brustrom P18 with that late instant cost him dear for Bright Esports, but still great racing for Linus Brustrom. The Swede, definitely one to watch out for now in the Prime class from this point onwards, because he has shown his pace throughout. And then Robert Dasunik and James Vasquez-Gal completing your top 20. Mark Sykes P21 there for Next Gen Racing Blue, having a good end to his day ahead of Jake Pitt, with Jonathan Collins, Andrea Romy and Alan McCain completing your top 25, and then Matthew Cheverton at P26 ahead of Matthew Jolly, and I do believe the last finisher on the lead lap, P28 there, Gavin Gardner for Next Gen Racing Pink. Finishing a lap down included Andrew Pike, Matthew Addy, who completed the top 30, Francisco Melo, Sam Smith, and then finishing 2 laps down at Paolo Maniti. We had finished 4 laps down in the end, classified as finishing 4 laps down, John Higgins Jr. and Nick Clearance for P35, and then Daniel Fadder, the first of our classified retirees or non-finishers, P36 for GRT Esport, ahead of Philip Bruberg and Gabriel Yilmaz. And as we come towards the end of our finishing positions, Luke Jones and Daniel Fritz both retiring there, one on lap 9 and one on lap 10. They round off your top 40 ahead of Marcello Felix, Phil McDougall and Andrea Talasco to complete your finishing standings. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, definitely a race to be seen, to be believed, in race number 3 here today of round 3 of the NXTCC Season 3. But you've seen it from the camera's perspective up and down the field. But what did our drivers have to make of the racing today? Well, we will be back for our post-round interviews with our drivers in approximately 10 to 12 minutes time. Don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss them. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for our post-round interviews with our selected drivers. And today we're going to be hearing from three of our drivers up and down the order, starting with the Pro Classes, Mikey Doble in the number 88, and hearing his thoughts in the Double Sim Racing Machine. We'll then coming on to Damon Mulqueen, our Prime driver who made it 2 wins out of 3 in races 1 and 2. And then lastly, we'll be hearing from Alex Meredith in the 44 for Chemical Mosport T1 in the Prime class, who notched his first podium of the season in class and overall in race number 3. But without further ado, joining me now in the interview room is Mikey Doble. Mikey, it's been some time since we had the last chance to catch up with yourself, and you've been right in the thick of it all season. But today it looks like you're finally starting to break your way through into the top 10 of the Pro class on a regular basis after a difficult start. A P10 in race 1, a P7 in race 2, and a P3 in class in race 3. A very positive day for yourself by looks of things.
Yeah, well, it's a welcome return to the interview room. I've been finishing too far back to be worthy of an interview so far this year, but yeah, I think results-wise, it wasn't. I think I've had better results at meetings 1 and 2, but actually with the ballast I was carrying in the car, I think it was probably the best performance from me so far this season to maximise what I had and close the gap to Jamie, who's obviously leading the championship coming into this event. But yeah, it's tough racing out there. The competition in this championship's gone up 2 or 3 levels from where it was last year. So, but yeah, it continues to get ever tougher, and I think we did a good job tonight.
Oh, most definitely. And starting off with qualifying, we saw in the qualifying session in the end, the top 31 was separated by 1 second, and you found yourself on the grid P27. Just take us through what qualifying was like for yourself, plus the fact you had some success ballast in the car.
Yeah, I mean, I went a tenth slower than I did in practice, which was 6 tenths off of pole. But I noticed most people had actually gone quite a bit slower than their practice time. So again, I think I pretty much unleashed everything I had in the car, and it was only good enough for what, P24 or something. But yeah, again, I wasn't unhappy with that. I just came in with a bit more of a patient mindset to I'll qualify where I qualify and just keep it clean in the races to continue to pick them off and hopefully get a reverse grid good draw for the last race.
Oh, indeed. And speaking of picking off places, we saw in race 1, you started to make some progress, gaining 7 places overall and 3 in class. But it looks as though race 1 was a bit of a race whereby for every step you took forward, there was almost a step to the side or a potential risk of a step back. Was it quite tight out there in race 1?
Yeah, it was bumper to bumper action. These cars, the Elantra is very difficult to get off the line. It's not the best, probably the worst car actually out the 4 for getting off the line. So I lost a couple of positions on the start, but then managed to claw a few back throughout the race. But it was pretty stalemate. I mean, everyone was lapping well. Not many people were making mistakes, so it was hard to gain ground. And again, when you're back in the thick of the pack like that, you've got to make sure that you're keeping out of trouble, and especially because one mistake would ruin your night, because you get put back to 40th or something and there's no coming back from that. So it was important to keep it on the track, gain a few places where I can, and just advance my position for race 2.
Oh, indeed. And moving into race number 2, we saw you start from 20th on the grid and make another 6 places up to what was P14, and in the end what would be classified as a P7 in class. Looks like that you're able to make a little bit more headway, albeit there were a few incidents up the road, and you had to try and steer clear of those.
Yeah, I mean, I think race 2, we got a very nice balance with the car and matched it to the conditions that we had. Been playing about with brake balance in this car since I started using Elantra this season, and I think we just about got hit the nail on the head tonight. It was driving really well, and I was actually able to. I think I saved my tyres quite nicely in race 2, and I was making some good headway towards the end of the race. And obviously it was a crucial race for me in the championship to make a move on Jamie. It was a clean move. I think he tried to hang it out around the outside and unfortunately stuck a wheel on the grass. But it was a move that had to be made if I was to keep the championship fight going. I know it's still early days in the season, but being second in the championship coming into this event with with quite a big points deficit, I had to make sure I put some cars between me and him. So yeah, that was the main success from race 2, was to get the move done on Jamie.
Oh, indeed. And then going into race number 3, of course, the number 22 was drawn out of the lottery bowl, and that would see you go from what would be effectively P14 on the grid to, if my mental mathematics is correct, I believe I want to say P9 for a starting position, albeit I'm not 100% sure on that, but starting just about inside the top 10. And I think in race number 3, you found yourself entangled with a number of the Chemical Motorsport machines.
Yeah, for not the first time this season, but yeah, again, not a great start, so dropped a couple of positions off the line, but managed to keep it clean again from there on. And once I did dispatch the 2 teammates in the red and black Elantras, I was able to get into a bit of a rhythm. Obviously, Adam Delmont caught me up, and there was no point in fighting him because he's in a much lighter car. And he was flying tonight, so I just let him go, let him pave the way for me to follow him through a couple of the cars I was battling, which I did, and then yeah, managed to just pick a couple of cars off who fell off from the front pack, but didn't quite have the pace to get involved in that lead battle, as fun as it looked. So yeah, and then dropped a position on the last lap, but at the end of the day, we'd had a good night's of results, so I didn't want to throw anything away over one position, so I kind of conceded that one quite easily and took the P7. So be interesting to see how the points shape out now going into next week.
Oh, most definitely, and I think a very sensible choice there to perhaps let it go in your close battle with Rafael Lobato all the way to the finish and take home what's third place on the pro podium. And I do have to ask, if you don't mind, obviously with you making your debut in BTCC only earlier this year, is there anything that you've found in real world touring car that you've brought to your racing on the simulator, or vice versa?
Yeah, I think I'm now the new Creasy. I mean, I've stuck a PMR on my livery, and now I'm at the back. So what can I say? But but no, yeah, it's I think I've definitely now got a target on my back. Now I'm in this series. I've gone from being just Mikey Doble, NXTGEN participant, to all of a sudden people seem to know who I am a little bit more in the real world, and want to have the opportunity to race me, and race me hard. Will they? And absolutely will they. But yeah, I think things have got tougher for me. I've taken the challenge of going to the Elantra this year, having won the championship in the Honda last year. Yeah, just I like a challenge, see how we could get on with it. I have regretted that decision on multiple times so far this season, but seeing that I had somehow come out of the first couple of rounds in P2 in the championship just gave me a confidence boost to think, right, I've got to attack this championship a little bit differently and try and stay up there through consistent results, not necessarily winning every race. But yes, it's nice to fly the flag for the real world drivers, and show that even if you are a touring car racer, that you can still make the time to come on the sim and carry on as we always have done. So yeah, that's one thing, but still looking forward to how this NXTCC Season 3 develops throughout, intertwined with my touring car racing in real life.
Oh, indeed, and we know you absolutely love a change, and we're all the more grateful to see you spending the time on the grid with us. And we're looking ahead, of course, to the change of next week. We head to the street circuit of Long Beach in the state of California, the US of A. How are you feeling for the very tricky circuit?
Yeah, I think round there it's going to be a matter of keeping it out of trouble if you can. There will be, luck will have to be on your side if you're to do well round there, because it only takes one person to make a mistake ahead of you, and it can potentially block the track and be catastrophic for those behind. So I think hopefully the ideal scenario is that I've gone down in the championship to have shed some of my ballast going into next week, but we have closed the overall gap to the leader. So that's the way my mind is working, which should hopefully allow me to get a bit of a better qualifying position next week. And I think with a lot of tight turns, a lot of change of direction, and it rewards accurate driving. So I'm hoping that the ballast may not be so much of a hindrance around Long Beach. We could get a good first couple of races under our belt and then just hold on to our hats for race 3 and try and come out the other side.
Well, it definitely seems like a sensible approach, and we look forward to seeing you enact that in a week's time. But just before we do let you go, Mikey, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
Yeah, to yourself as always for fantastic commentary. Look forward to watching it back as usual. To mum and dad, who I'm sure are still watching downstairs if they're not asleep. Grandparents watching from home. Well done to Isaac actually for a very good performance tonight. I think it's his best showing of probably last season and this season combined. So yeah, yeah, thanks to anyone else that's tuned in and persevered throughout the broadcast, and hopefully everyone's enjoyed it.
Well, Mikey, we've enjoyed having you in the interview, no question about that. Thank you, as always, for joining me in the interview room. And, well, congratulations on your results today and, indeed, on your debut at Donington only weeks ago. And we look forward to seeing you out of the circuit, both in the real world and, of course, in the virtual world next week.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Good night.
All the best. So hearing that from Mikey Doble, the Doble Sim Racing driver, racing, of course, in the real world of BTCC and bringing his trade to the NXTCC. And interesting there, talking about being a man with a target on his back, in the fact that, of course, much like Michael Crease, who raced under the very similar PowerMax car store colours that we saw in Season 2 for a couple rounds, well, Doble, of course, getting right back into the thick of it for Season 3. Of course, he's our defending pro champion, so he does have a huge target on him in terms of the fact that many of our pro class drivers want that crown off of him, but also to be able to say they put one over a real world touring car driver. But in terms of his racing as well, what's been very intriguing is the fact the adjustment to the Elantra, which, as he mentioned quite explicitly, he's regretted in some points given the fact he's moved from the Honda Civic Type R to the Elantra for this season, but looking to take on that challenge, and also that balancing act of the success ballast having such a major impact from round to round. And knowing that he's lost points overall, but also targeting closing the overall gap to Jamie Dorey, with the pair of them losing points compared to their peers. And I think we're going to see quite a bit of a seesaw motion, if you will, over the whole season, where drivers, Mikey Doble included, may have to drop certain points at certain rounds in order to get closer to that overall aim of becoming champion or defending champion in the case of Mikey Doble. But having heard from our first interview of the day, we now come on to our second interview of Damon Mulqueen, and well, he'll be joining us from the other side of the world, but he's been absolutely flying high today, there is no question about that. And as he gets ready to join me now, well, we're going to hear his perspective on what was 2 wins on the bounce, and of course an absolutely brilliant drive to a 5th place finishing class P9 overall in race number 3. And as he does get ready to join me, in fact, he joins me now. Damon, good morning to you, and well, what a morning it has been for you. Back-to-back overall and prime class wins in races 1 and 2, and then rounded off with a top 5 finish in race 3 at a circuit where overtaking looked very tricky. You must feel absolutely on top of the moon right now.
Yeah, I'm not feeling too bad, but tired. But you know, pretty good. Can't complain with how it all went in the end. It basically came down to, in the first 2 races, just looking after the tyres and the hot track temp that we had. And this track with the high loads going through the long sweeping corners can absolutely chew the living daylights out of them. So yeah, just had to, you know, nurse them throughout the race, the first 2 races, just to, you know, have something at the end to fight with if need be.
Most definitely. And before we come on to the races themselves, talking a little bit about qualifying, of course, finding yourself on the grid at P3, albeit with a field where the top 31 was separated by a second come the end. It must have been quite the pressure cooker in terms of the fact from lap to lap you didn't know where you were going to be, but the target, of course, would be to be on those front rows.
Yeah, it was definitely, you know, I just sort of went out there and went to do my best. It's basically all you sort of really ask for, and you try and maximise what you can out of the car for the weight that's in the car with the fuel. Is the lower the fuel is, the quicker you go. Helps with building up the momentum through some of the corners and holding it a little bit better. But then, even on my best lap, I sort of buggered up a few of the corners, and that, you know, ultimately set me back. So being on pole would have been nice, but then at the same time, it's sort of hard to, you know, fully, you know, sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Brain's not working. You know, be over the moon about it, because, you know, you're racing you're putting yourself amongst cars that potentially have a decent amount of ballast on them as well by default. So their lives are already made a bit more difficult, while I've simply got it pretty simple because the car's got no ballast in it. So at the same time, it's sort of you just go out, you do the best you can. I'll assume it's the same for the guys with ballast, and where you end up is where you sort of end up.
Oh, indeed, and fair assessment there. And then coming on to the races, of course, you were on the front row you were on the second row behind what was a hotly contested launch off the line. And we did see Andrea Talasco, of course, jump the start. And well, with that, it seemed to open an opportunity for yourself to very quickly take the lead of the race. I bet there must have been a bit of a smile on your face when you saw the jump start.
Well, I was trying to keep my eyes focused on the lights, because because there's always the possibility of, you see the guy ahead of you move, and I sort of caught out the corner of my eye and almost ended up going, it's like, no, can't do that. So yeah, it sort of made it a wee bit easier, and it, I can't remember who it was, I'm still learning names, in the first race, who ended up battling. It looked like with the Audi was struggling with looking after the tyres. I know the Audi by default doesn't like the long radius corners that we have here at Mosport, so that definitely made it a bit easier, and then I didn't expect to get the move done where I did. I thought I would have got a corner or so earlier. But yeah, it was good fun. You can do some things with these front-wheel drive cars that you sort of don't expect at times. So yeah, definitely happy about how it ended up working out in the end.
Oh, indeed, and fighting off the pair of Daniel Holmer and Andrea Romy, both in the pro class. And we saw towards the end of race number 1, it was almost as if you slightly backed the pair of them together and they just started to fight and they just let you go. Was that always the intention, to try and get them to square off against one another?
No, the intention was to do the best I could through where I had the advantage just from the car itself, to try and pull a bit of a gap. Where the Audi struggles, you've got to make up for it where you can, and the Audi looked like it struggled on long radius corners, but then at the same time, if I screwed any of those up, it brought them in, pretty close down towards the end of the back straight to try and make a move, which Audi's got it's got the top end here, compared, I think, to every other car. So it was all about, just trying to maximise the corners the best I could, and it started to work, and then that's where I started thinking maybe those tyres on the front tyres on those Audis aren't looking too happy. So because I just kept doing the same thing, and all of a sudden I was starting to pull away a little bit, and by a little bit, and I just went with it and stuck doing the same thing.
Well, indeed, quite the logical approach there, and capitalising on the strengths of your own car versus the weaknesses that are apparent in your opponents. And in race 2, it looked a bit of the same in the way, a good launch off the line, and then after a couple of laps, the gap was enough that it looked as though you were managing the race and protecting the car.
Yeah, I was quite surprised at the start. I was expecting at least one of them to get by me, because the Audis get amazing launches, and I must have just got it right in the Elantra for a change. So to do an Audi start and not an Audi was quite a new experience. Because yeah, anytime you can beat Audis down to turn 1 or the first braking zone, it's always a win. And then yeah, for the rest of it, it was sort of get the tyres up to temp, because the car is not happy on cold tyres. It doesn't like turning in very well, so you've got to try and do that without scrubbing too much speed. And then yeah, once the tyres came up and looking after the tyres in the same process, I was just basically able to do what I did in the previous race and just pull a bit of a gap here and there. And I'm not quite sure if they battled pretty hard in that second race. I was too busy looking forward, trying to not screw it up. Almost did at Moss once, I think. But yeah, it ended up working out quite well.
And then going into race number 3, of course, we saw the number 22 appear again after Imola last week. And was started at 22nd on the grid. You didn't waste any time and started to cut your way through the field.
Well, it wasn't really so much cutting my way through the field. It was basically just people either getting involved in incidents, getting spun off the track, or getting caught up in accidents just in general. I think maybe I did 1 or 2 at the most actual physical overtakes on somebody during the race for a position. And yeah, the rest of it was just avoidance and hoping a car wasn't stopped on the track in a silly spot. So it worked out well. It was about 3 or 4 Code Brown moments, and the last one directly towards the end, I think it was the second last lap. Accident coming out of the first corner, and somehow managed to get through it with 3 or 4 cars going multiple different directions in front of me. So yeah, it was all about survival in that one, and it turned out quite well somehow.
Well, He managed to survive to the end to make it a top 5 come the finish in class and a P9 overall. And with the results today, there could be the potential prospect of some success ballast coming your way into round number 4 at Long Beach next week. How are you feeling for the next round?
Well, Long Beach, I've got to learn. I've only done a very small handful of races there on the service here on iRacing. So, yeah, it's going to be learning that. I don't think I've ever driven a TCR car around there, so that'll be all new. And then if ballast comes onto the car, it's just going to have to try and not worry too much about that. Everyone else, well, others don't have any ballast on the car, and you just got to maximise it where you can. So hopefully, there's only a couple of curbs I think we need to take there at Long Beach, so it shouldn't be too bad.
We do look forward to seeing how you rise to the challenge next week in the US of A. But just before we let you go, Damon, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to on the broadcast today?
I'm just going to thank the crew at Synergy Sim Racing for briefing me another pretty fantastic car that we're actually able to do something with this time compared to last week. That was a bit of a shocker. So yeah, it's been a good way to bounce back after Imola. The wave runner performance into DGG Customs, Aussies Mechanical, Smith & Son, DO Photo, DM Photography. Who else is there? There's quite a few, so if there's anyone else that I've missed, sorry guys, but it's greatly appreciated. And to yourself for the broadcast, I'm going to definitely give it a look back either before I go to work today, or when I get home, one of the two. And I'm looking forward to it, so cheers.
It's our pleasure, Damon, and with that, thank you for joining me in the interview room. Congratulations once again on an absolutely brilliant bounce back from Imola with 2 wins and a 5th place in class come the finish today, and we look forward to seeing you in the US of A.
Cheers. See you.
All the best. So hearing there from Damon Mulqueen, the Pro-Am driver from Synergy Fortis Racing, putting an absolutely stellar performance today, and indeed focusing on what he could do. Also, you could hear the realism with regards to his thought process in terms of analysing qualifying and the races, knowing that with no ballast in the car versus other drivers with ballast, things would be looking relatively strong in qualifying by default, but still he had to put in the work and the effort in order to pull it off. And right now, Damon Mulqueen, an absolute speed demon it would seem in the Pro-Am class, and we're well on his way to take the lead of the championship. And of course, with the results today, it's definitely going to be interesting to see at Long Beach whether we can carry this tide of momentum in the championship, and also if that success ballast should come to him, what impact it may have to his approach in racing there on the streets of the US of A. But we'll see in a week's time. But then we come to our last interview of the day, ladies and gentlemen, and it's going to be none other than very shortly Alex Meredith from Chemical E Motorsport T1 in the Pro-Am class. And well, for the number 44 driver, it was a day today of mixed results, but in the end up bringing on home one of his best results of the season so far. And as he gets ready to join me in the interview room, we look forward to hearing his perspective. But as we do, just let him know to join us. We'll be with us very shortly, and quite the medley, particularly with qualifying versus races 1 and 2. But as he does join me now, Alex, it ended on the ultimate high, I would argue. A P3 overall and a P3 in the Pro-Am class, your first podium of the season. It took a lot of effort to get there, though, after a good qualifying session undermined by races 1 and 2. I suspect there might be some mixed emotions right now.
Man, that was such a roller coaster. I mean, race 1 was the lowest of lows, and then to make 26 positions on race 2, and then up into P3, race 3 was because of the reverse grid, which I was extremely lucky with, was really incredible.
Oh, indeed, and you had to deliver from the outset. And if we start with qualifying, in a qualifying session where the top 31 were separated by 1 second come the close of the 15 minutes, you placed yourself P6 on the grid. I mean, we saw you mention in the YouTube chat before we went racing today that you were looking forward to this one. Was it always in your mind that you were going to be placing quite high in qualifying?
I mean, I was the quickest person in the Chemical team, which virtually never ever happens, so I knew I was going to be sort of up there, but I didn't realise I was going to be that quick. The lap just kind of came to me. I kind of hooked it all up that I couldn't really do in practice. Even without slipstreaming, it just kind of all hooked up, and I got everything pretty perfect. I don't think I could have improved.
Well, an absolutely perfect lap, but then not quite a perfect race number one. It looked good off the line, to be fair, but soon after, an instant and the midpoint of the race saw you fall down the grid.
Yeah, race one was just I made a really silly mistake. I just tapped the grass with the rear and then didn't react quick enough. Usually, you just sort of accelerate to counter steer. But in the moment, I didn't really think of it. So it basically ended up in me careering into the barrier. Because as we all know, grass on iRacing is basically a ticket to the barrier. And I'm just very lucky that I didn't hit anybody else.
Well, indeed, it was an unlucky race number one, and with that barrier contact, having to start from what was P44 on the grid, or effectively the last spots of the grid going into race number two, and a drive all the way up to P17, 26 places gained, and well, that must have been a thriller of a race. You must have been in full concentration mode from start to end.
Race two, I just said to myself before the race, I'm just going to send it, I don't care what the outcome is, and I did a couple of moves in the mid-race, but it was mostly people just sort of making their own mistakes and crashing around me. And it was very lucky that I was able to get up to P17 and then be in a really good spot for the reverse grid.
Indeed, and in that race too, of course, having to push hard and sending it, I have to ask, we've been a very hot day here in Canada today, and with track temperatures at some points exceeding 40 degrees centigrade. How did it feel on the front tyres? Because we know the Elantra is normally quite aggressive on tyre wear.
Oh, it's interesting. For basically the week I've been practicing this track, the tyres were basically dead by lap 10. But I must have changed my driving style in some way, because in race two they were actually fine until the end. I didn't really notice too much difference, surprisingly.
Well, quite the change of driving style, and been able to conserve the tyres and give yourself that longevity, and you needed that longevity in race 3 because, of course, with a top 22 inverted grid, that P17 finish would mean, if my maths is correct, you started P7 on the grid for the purposes of race 3, and well, you very quickly found yourself in P4 overall, battling for an overall podium.
Yeah, the start, to be honest, wasn't fantastic. I just put too little clutch on, didn't get the revs up, so dropped to P8. But then there were a couple of times ahead where people went off, and then I was just able to capitalize on other people trying to avoid those accidents and braking. So I was just trying to weave myself through, and eventually got myself up into a podium spot, which was really mental after the first race disaster, really.
Oh, indeed, and I can imagine that when you're battling with Paul Scott, finding the move right towards the end versus the Audi driver, it didn't come easy given the fact you spent the majority of the race running behind him, and that Audi was no slouch on the straights. How did it come about? Yeah,
honestly, into the double apex, Moss corner, I think it's called, I was like, oh, I've got a better exit than him, but then he just sort of walked away on the straight, so I was just like, you know, I've just got to wait for him to maybe make a mistake. And then he did make a tiny mistake. I thought I have to go for it here, otherwise I'm not going to get past at all, and then wouldn't be able to challenge for the lead. So I just sent it. It was a decent move, I think, and I think it was 90%. It was probably going to work out. So just all about safety in that third race.
Well, indeed, but finding it right at the end and to claim your first Pro-Am and overall podium in Canada, a great feeling, and well, one you'll hope to recreate, of course, in a week's time at Long Beach in the US of A. How are you feeling for the street circuit?
Not as confident as here, because I absolutely love racing here, but I do really enjoy Long Beach. I think with a bit of practice in the week and on the weekend, I think I can probably get on decent pace, and I think I can probably challenge again for top 20, maybe challenge with the pros who have weight and things like that, a ballast.
Well, I'm loving the confidence from yourself, Alex, and we look forward to seeing how you can take that change to the pros and indeed your peers in the Pro-Am class. But just before we do let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to tonight on the broadcast?
I'd like to thank, obviously, Canadian Tire Motorsports, because they have been instrumental in teaching me how to do all this racecraft, get quick at this circuit. Always been very committed and treating me like part of their team, which is difficult when I'm younger, but I'm really happy about that. And obviously everybody watching on the broadcast supporting me after race 1 as well, where I was really, really annoyed with myself. People were texting me and things like that, so I'm really grateful for that. Thank you.
We do have quite the fan group, I must say, on the broadcast, but to be fair, it's great to see so many people behind you, and great to hear that Canadian Tire Motorsport are supporting you every step of the way. Alex, it's been a pleasure to have you in the interview room. Congratulations once again on a superb qualifying lap, indeed a race 2 to enable you to turn things around for a podium in race number 3, and we look forward to seeing plenty more racing from yourself in a week's time at Long Beach.
Thank you, thank you.
All the best. So hearing there from Alex Meredith, the Prime driver from Canadian Tire Motorsport Team 1, who in his own words, they're on a roller coaster ride of emotion from start to finish today, with a qualifying session which backed up the confidence he brought into the round to see it all fall apart in race 1 with a mistake which was just one tyre to the grass and then a nasty knock to the wall. But in race number 2, keeping his head down, going all in and sending it, and finding along the way that he didn't take too much life out the tyres to be able to hold on to P17 come the finish, meant that with the top 22 inverted grid, Lady Luck being on his side, of course, because it doesn't always work out to be a large or near towards the maximum of the grid, but Luck was on his side there, and from that point he didn't let the opportunity go. He went all in, found the move on Paul Scott towards the very end, Others around him also falling off the circuit, and it would be P3 at the checker flags. We look at the pictures of him trying to chase down Paul Scott to the very end of the race, but congratulations to him, and what a performance. He's definitely a young star for everyone to keep an eye out as this season continues to make headway. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our interviews for today. You've heard from the free drivers, most recently Alex Meredith in the Prime class for Canadian Tire Motorsport Team 1 in the 44. You also previously heard from Mikey Doble in the number 88 for Doble Sim Racing in the Pro class, and in between the pair we did hear Damon Mulqueen in the 42 for Synergy Fortis Racing in the Prime class. Congratulations to all three of them on their performances today, and thank you to them again once more for joining me in the interview room. And well, with that, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show and you want to know more about the Next Gen Racing community, perhaps you're sat there right now thinking that you enjoy touring car and you want to be on the grid, perhaps for Season 3, or if not that, for Season 4. I'm sure there is going to be a Season 4, given how this series is going from strength to strength, round after round, where you can always find out more about the Next Gen Racing community in terms of what we do on the virtual and the real circuit on, firstly, our website, located at www.nextgenracing.co.uk, and well, our website, as you'll see on screen, is the home of clean and fair sim racing for all, as we've been hosting leagues for over 16 and a half years on PC and console, and indeed we've had a variety of successful series, so much so that currently we do have a whole multitude of series ongoing, including the NXTCC, which you've seen today. We've also currently got ongoing the Front Wheel Drive Fridays Clio Cup series. We've also got recently started our first open wheel Formula Series, or the fixed Formula Ford 1600, if I get that correctly. And we also do have coming up in June and July new renditions of the GT3 League, and also what is the Proto GT3 Championship. So there's plenty more on offer. What is Next Gen Racing as we make our way into the summer of 2023, and we would love to have you on the grid. But even if you don't want to be on the grid, you're always welcome to chat with us and indeed find out more about what we do on the real world circuit, because a good number of us, of course, participate in real world motorsport, whether on track or as marshals. But if you don't want to head to our official website, you can, of course, alternatively follow us on social media. And to do so, all you need to do is head to our Facebook group at www.facebook.com/groups/Next Gen Racing, and you can find out all the latest information about us there. We'd also like to take a brief moment to give a big thank you to our sponsors for this series, and that of course is Douglas Motorsport. Their web address douglasmotorsport.com, and they are the leading race team I should say in driver development, which aims to give drivers a path of progression to LMP3 class racing, from karts to Ginetta Juniors and Ginetta GT4, alternatively via British Formula 3. And if you'd like to know more about the team, who are specialists in British Formula 3 and Ginetta Cup racing, please do head to their website. That website again, www.douglasmotorsport.com. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we now head from what was Canada to a little bit further south to the state of California, and in particular in the US of A, it is the city of Long Beach. We make our way downtown for round number 4 on Tuesday, the 9th of May 2023. Indeed, the NXTCC takes on its first official street circuit of its entire history, and how our drivers get on in the close confines where the walls are closed, particularly around the fountain section, but still there's plenty of opportunities for overtaking. We've seen the rise of many a driver today, particularly in the Pro-Am class, whether it be Damon Mulqueen, Alex Meredith, or in the Pro class we've also seen the charge of Mikey Doble and Rafael Lobato, but who will be able to carry that momentum forward into round number 4? That'll be the question, and you can find out the answer then on Tuesday the 9th of May. But until then, we have been Next Gen Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.